Welcome, brave souls. Tonight, we step across the threshold into a realm where wallpaper peels with whispers. Footsteps echo in empty rooms, and the past refuses to stay buried. Across America, countless homes hide dark secrets, but some are more infamous than others. These are the 25 most haunted homes in the United States where spirits roam the halls, where tragedy still lingers, and where even the bravest visitors often leave trembling. So, dim the lights, lock your doors, and listen closely. You may find that some houses are never truly empty. The Lemp Mansion stands like a silent sentinel on Demon Hill Place in St. Louis, Missouri, a grand ivory-clad relic of Gilded Age opulence, now cloaked in sorrow and whispers of the supernatural. Built in the late 1800s by William J. Lemp Sr., the patriarch of one of America's most successful brewing dynasties, the mansion was once a symbol of wealth, power, and innovation. The Lemp Brewery had made the family fortune, and this home was that crown jewel, a place of lavish parties, fine art, and Southern Gothic elegance. But behind the ornate woodwork and stained glass windows lay a darkness that would consume the family. One tragedy at a time. William J. Lemp Sr. was a self-made man, a German immigrant who turned a small brewery into a regional powerhouse. His success allowed him to build a life of privilege for his children, William Jr., Edwin, Elsa, and Ida. But as Prohibition loomed in the early 20th century, the brewery's fate hung in the balance. The family business, once a titan of the industry, began to crumble under legal and financial strain. William Sr., unable to bear the collapse of his empire, took his own life in 1907 with a single gunshot in the very mansion he had built. He was found in the upstairs study, slumped over his desk, a victim of despair. His death was only the beginning. His son, William Jr., inherited the brewery and the burden of expectation. Though he tried to keep the business alive, Prohibition sealed its fate. In 1922, with the brewery shuttered and his world in ruins, William Jr. followed his father's path. He was discovered in the mansion's wine cellar, a revolver in hand, having ended his life just as his father had. The family, already reeling, could not escape the shadow of grief. Then came 1949. Edwin Lemp, another son, had long struggled with poor health and depression. After years of declining physical and mental well-being, he died alone in the mansion's guest house. Though officially ruled a heart attack, rumors persisted that his death was not entirely natural, that he, too, may have chosen to end his suffering. The family's matriarch, Lillian Lemp, widow of William Jr., lived on in the mansion, watching her world disintegrate. When she passed in 1957, the last of the Lemps left the house empty, a monument to a fallen dynasty. But the mansion did not rest. Over the decades, it changed hands, used as a restaurant, a private club, and eventually a venue for events and overnight stays. And with each new occupant, stories began to emerge. Guests reported strange sensations, footsteps echoing through empty hallways when no one was there. The sudden drop of temperature in certain rooms, particularly the upstairs study and the wine cellar. Many claimed to feel an unseen presence brushing past them, a cold hand grazing their shoulder, or breath on the back of their neck when they were alone. One of the most frequently seen apparitions is believed to be William Jr. Visitors describe a tall man in period clothing, standing silently at the foot of the grand staircase or gazing out the window of the second-floor landing. He appears sorrowful, lost in thought, vanishing when approached. Others report seeing a woman in a long, dark dress wandering the halls, possibly Ida Lemp, who lived in the mansion for years after her brother's deaths and died in 1950. Never marrying, never leaving. The wine cellar, where William Jr. died, is said to be especially active. Guests have heard bottles clinking when no one is down there, smelled the faint aroma of cigar smoke despite no one smoking, and felt sudden waves of dread as they descend the stone steps. Some claim to hear faint sobbing from within the walls, or the sound of a door slamming shut with no visible cause. Cold spots are common throughout the mansion, but most intense in the master bedroom and the study where William Sr. took his life. Electronic devices often malfunction, cameras fail, Audio recorders pick up unexplained whispers, and lights flicker without explanation. Paranormal investigators have captured what some believe to be EVP's electronic voice phenomena, voices pleading, crying, or simply saying, "Leave." The mansion's current caretakers do not shy away from its history. They embrace it, hosting ghost tours, overnight investigations, and historical events that delve into the tragic legacy of the Lemp family. Yet even those who come skeptical often leave changed, having felt something they cannot explain, heard a sound with no source, or seen a shadow move just beyond the edge of sight. Some believe the spirits are trapped by unresolved sorrow, unable to move on from the weight of their choices and the family's downfall. Others think the house itself absorbed the pain, becoming a vessel for grief that replays like a broken record. Whatever the truth, the Lemp Mansion remains one of the most haunted places in America, not because of violent deaths or ancient curses, but because of quiet tragedies, the slow unraveling of a family undone by loss, expectation, and the unbearable silence that follows a gunshot in an empty house.
In the quiet town of Atchison, Kansas, there stands a modest, unassuming home that has become infamous across the country. From the outside, the white two-story house looks ordinary, even charming, with nothing to suggest the horrors that lurk within. Yet, behind its doors, countless visitors have experienced a haunting so intense that it has left grown men trembling, fleeing into the night. This is the story of the Sallie House, a place where innocence and terror intertwine, where the spirit of a little girl is said to linger, but not in the way one might hope. The legend begins in the early 1900s with a doctor who once lived and practiced in the home. As the story goes, one day, a frantic mother brought her young daughter, Sally, to the doctor's office. The girl was suffering from severe abdominal pain, and the physician, suspecting appendicitis, believed surgery was urgently required. Fearing the appendix would burst, he allegedly began the procedure before the anesthesia had fully taken hold. Sally awoke in agony on the operating table, screaming and writhing in pain. Her cries filled the house until, tragically, she died during the operation. Whether this tale is fact or folklore remains disputed, but it is the seed from which the house's legend grew. Since then, people who have entered the home claim Sally never truly left. At first, her presence seems gentle, almost childlike. Visitors have reported toys moving on their own, giggling sounds drifting down the hallway, and the sensation of small, unseen hands tugging playfully at clothing. Some describe the feeling of a child brushing past them, a fleeting glimpse of a little girl standing quietly in a doorway before disappearing. For many, these encounters suggest a lonely spirit still yearning for comfort, for attention, for someone to care. But the sweetness never lasts for long. Over time, the energy in the Sallie house begins to shift. What starts as curiosity soon becomes aggression. Men in particular have reported being scratched by unseen claws, their skin raked with angry red marks that appear in seconds. Others claim to have been shoved violently, pushed against walls, or pinned to the floor by an invisible force. Objects move with startling force, chairs sliding across rooms, photographs flying from walls, and small items hurling through the air as if thrown by unseen hands. The air grows heavy, suffocating, as though the house itself is pressing in on anyone who dares to stay too long. Perhaps the most infamous case occurred in the 1990s, when a young couple, Tony and Deborah Pickman, moved into the house. At first, they noticed strange but harmless activity lights flickering, unexplained cold spots, and their dog growling at empty corners. But soon the haunting turned violent. Tony, in particular, became the target of Sally's wrath. Deep scratches appeared on his chest and arms, sometimes while he was wide awake. He claimed to feel invisible hands digging into his skin, the sting of nails dragging across his body. On several occasions, he was shoved so hard that he nearly fell. At night, he and Deborah would hear footsteps pacing the nursery, toys being scattered, and a little girl's voice calling out in the dark. The Pickmans endured months of torment before fleeing the house in fear, unable to withstand the constant assault. Their story was later documented in paranormal investigations and television shows, spreading the legend of Sallie House to a national Audience. Paranormal experts who have studied the home are divided on what exactly resides within. Some believe Sally is indeed the spirit of a child who died tragically, her pain and anger twisting her playful energy into something darker. Others suspect that something far more sinister hides behind the mask of an innocent child, using her image to lure people in before revealing its true, malevolent nature. Those who have dared to spend the night often describe the atmosphere as unbearable. The upstairs nursery is the epicenter of activity, a room where toys sometimes move by themselves, where cameras malfunction, and where people report feeling watched from every corner. Visitors describe sudden chills that make their breath visible in the air, even when the house is warm. Many feel an overwhelming sense of dread, as though they are not only unwelcome, but in genuine danger. The basement, too, holds its terrors. Investigators have reported seeing shadowy figures lurking in the darkness, darting just beyond the reach of flashlights. Some claim to hear growls echoing from the far corners, or whispers that rise and fall with no apparent source. Equipment often fails, batteries draining within minutes, as though the energy of the living is being consumed by whatever dwells in the house. For skeptics, the Sally House might simply be a case of folklore exaggerated by frightened visitors. But for those who have felt the sting of scratches appear on their skin, for those who have been shoved, for those who have heard the cries of a little girl in the dead of night, there is little doubt that something lingers there. Whether it is the tormented soul of Sally herself or something darker wearing her face like a mask, the result is the same: fear, dread, and a haunting that refuses to be ignored. To this day, the Sally House remains open for tours and overnight stays, drawing curious adventurers, paranormal investigators, and thrill seekers from around the world. Some leave with nothing but a story of a spooky night in a famous haunted home. Others leave shaken, carrying scars, both physical and emotional, that will never fade. For them, the house is more than legend did, is proof that the veil between the living and the dead is dangerously thin, and that some spirits do not rest quietly. The story of the Sally House continues to grow with each new visitor, each new encounter with the unseen. Its walls hold secrets that may never be fully uncovered, and its rooms echo with the cries of a child who never found peace. What begins as the ghost of a little girl quickly unravels into something far more terrifying. The Sally House does not just haunt, it hunts, leaving behind the chilling reminder that not every spirit wears the innocence of the form it takes.
In the rolling countryside of Adams, Tennessee, a small cabin and an unassuming stretch of farmland hold one of the darkest legends in American folklore. It is the story of the Bell Witch, a haunting so fierce and unrelenting that it has remained etched in the minds of locals for over 2 centuries. The Bell family's ordeal in the early 1800s is still whispered about around campfires, told in hushed tones in classrooms, and investigated by those who seek proof that spirits can, indeed, torment the living. Even today, the land where the Bell farm once stood seems heavy with an unseen presence, as though the witch's curse never truly lifted. The haunting began in 1817, when John Bell, a prosperous farmer, noticed strange animals lurking around his property. One evening, while walking through his fields, he claimed to see a bizarre creature, part dog and part rabbit, staring at him with glowing eyes before darting away. Disturbed, John tried to put the encounter out of his mind, but the strangeness escalated. Soon, the Bell family began hearing knocking sounds against the walls of their log cabin. At first, the noises were faint, like someone gently rapping at the door. But within weeks, the knocks grew louder. The disturbances did not stop there. Blankets were yanked from beds in the dead of night, pillows hurled across the room, and faint whispers echoed through the halls. At first, the voices were low, incoherent, like a distant murmur carried on the wind. But over time, they grew stronger, clearer, mocking them, laughing in the shadows. The Bell Witch, as she would come to be known, had made herself at home. Her torment focused especially on John Bell and his daughter Betsy. Betsy, a young girl on the verge of womanhood, became the victim of relentless assaults. Invisible hands slapped her face, pulled her hair, and left red welts on her skin. Night after night, leaving the family horrified and helpless. John Bell himself was not spared. He suffered from mysterious fits and an unrelenting illness that doctors could not explain. His mouth would twitch uncontrollably, his throat swelled, and he complained of a constant pressure around his jaw. The entity seemed to thrive on fear and chaos. Neighbors who visited the Bell home were often treated to the same disturbing experiences: heavy footsteps across the floor when no one was walking, ghostly laughter ringing out from the corners of the room, and the sound of gnawing on the bedposts, as though some invisible animal were chewing the wood to splinters. And soon the Bell Witch became the talk of the region. Curious onlookers, clergymen, and skeptics all came to witness the disturbances for themselves. Many left the cabin pale-faced and shaken, swearing they had encountered something beyond explanation. The spirit was not always violent. At times, she would engage in long conversations, singing hymns, quoting scripture, and gossiping about local events. She seemed to know secrets about people in the community, things she could not possibly have learned naturally. But her mood was unpredictable, shifting in an instant from eerily calm to violently cruel. It was as if she fed on attention, growing stronger the more people came to listen. By 1820, John Bell's condition had worsened dramatically. He grew weaker, often unable to leave his bed, tormented by the spirit, who declared openly that she intended to kill him. On December 20th of that year, John was found dead, a vial of strange black liquid discovered near his bedside. The Bell Witch, with a mocking laugh, allegedly claimed responsibility, saying she had poisoned him. His funeral was a large one, attended by friends, family, and neighbors. But even there, the witch did not remain silent. As mourners lowered John's body into the ground, her voice rang out, cackling and singing until those present were chilled to the bone. After John Bell's death, the witch's presence began to fade, though not completely. Betsy, tormented for years, eventually broke off her engagement to a local man, claiming the spirit would never allow her happiness. The entity seemed pleased by her misery, before finally announcing it would leave. Yet even as her appearances dwindled, whispers remained that she would one day return. The Bell Witch legend did not die with the family. In fact, it only grew. Stories circulated that the spirit lingered in a nearby cave, now known as the Bell Witch Cave, a dark limestone cavern near the original homestead. Visitors to the cave often report strange phenomena, echoing voices that answer back from the shadows, objects thrown across the floor, and icy hands brushing against their skin in the dark. The cave has become a focal point for those who believe the witch still roams, waiting to lash out again. Even modern accounts from those who have visited the property tell of unexplained events. Tourists claim to hear violent knocks against the cabin walls, footsteps following them through the cave, and whispers so close to their ears that they swear someone is standing behind them. Photographs taken inside often reveal strange mists or shadowy figures not seen at the time. Eerily similar to the wounds once inflicted on Betsy Bell, the haunting of the Bell family remains one of the most documented and terrifying accounts in American history. Unlike ghost stories that fade with time, the Bell Witch refuses to be forgotten. Her tale has been studied by folklorists, retold in books, and even adapted into films. Yet the essence of the legend remains the same. A malevolent force that terrorized a family, claimed a man's life, and left a permanent scar on the land of Adams, Tennessee. A manifestation of dark energy, or something far more sinister, is a question no one has been able to answer. But those who visit the site often leave convinced that something unnatural lingers there. Something that feeds on fear and thrives in the dark. The farmland may look peaceful in the daylight, but when night falls and the wind carries faint whispers through the trees, locals know better than to linger too long. The Bell Witch is still listening, and perhaps still waiting for her next victim. In the historic town of Salem, Massachusetts, where the echoes of the witch trials linger like a curse, stands an elegant brick mansion that has earned a reputation as one of the most haunted homes in New England. The Joshua Ward House, built in the early 1780s, rises proudly in the heart of Salem, its federal-style architecture a testament to wealth and refinement. Yet beneath its graceful appearance lies a darker legacy, for the house was built upon land once occupied by Sheriff George Corwin, a man whose name is forever linked to cruelty, suffering, and the hysteria of the witch trials. George Corwin was just 25 years old when he was appointed High Sheriff of Essex County in 1692, at the height of the Salem witch trials. While magistrates passed the sentences, it was Corwin who carried them out, overseeing the arrests, the imprisonment, and, most notoriously, the brutal examinations of the accused. Though historical records remain debated, Corwin is often remembered for his cruelty, said to have tortured prisoners in hopes of forcing confessions. The most infamous story is that of Giles Corey, a farmer accused of witchcraft, who refused to enter a plea. For his defiance, Corey was subjected to pressing, a gruesome punishment in which heavy stones were laid upon his chest. It took 2 days for him to die. And legend has it that Sheriff Corwin watched coldly as Corey's final words cursed both him and the town. Corwin himself died only a few years later, in 1696, at the age of 30. Local lore suggests that his body was buried in the basement of his home, the very land where the Joshua Ward house now stands, to prevent angry townsfolk from desecrating his remains. Whether true or not, the shadow of Corwin's cruelty has stained the ground, and those who have entered the house claim his spirit, and the spirits of those he tormented still linger there. When Joshua Ward, a wealthy merchant, built his mansion on the site, nearly a century later, he could not have foreseen the haunting that would follow. The house quickly became one of Salem's grandest residences, a symbol of prosperity rising from the ashes of its dark past. Yet no amount of wealth or elegance could erase the echoes of suffering buried beneath its foundation. Over the centuries, visitors to the Joshua Ward house have reported chilling encounters. One of the most common apparitions is that of a shadowy woman, often seen drifting through the halls. She appears dressed in old-fashioned clothing, her face obscured, her form dark and wavering, as though she exists halfway between this world and the next. Some believe she is one of the accused witches who met her fate at Corwin's hands. Her spirit, unable to move on, tethered to the place where her agony began. Others suggest she may even be an embodiment of Salem's collective grief, a symbol of the countless innocent lives destroyed during that dark chapter. Those who have encountered her describe an overwhelming sense of sorrow and unease, as though the very air grows heavy in her presence. On some occasions, guests have felt icy hands brush against their arms or shoulders, leaving them shivering long after the moment has passed. In other instances, they claim to hear faint weeping echoing from empty rooms, the sound of a woman's despair carried through the walls. The house also carries stories of more malevolent activity. Visitors have reported being pushed, scratched, or suddenly overwhelmed by feelings of dread so intense they had to leave immediately. One particularly unsettling photograph, taken in the 1980s, when the house briefly served as an office building, shows a strange female figure in the background, her hair wild, her face twisted in a grotesque expression, even though no such person was present when the photo was taken. The image has become one of the most circulated pieces of evidence, supporting the house's haunted reputation. Some say the presence of Sheriff Corwin himself can still be felt within the Joshua Ward house. Employees and guests alike have described sensations of being watched, as though a stern, judgmental gaze follows them from room to room. Objects are said to move on their own, doors open and close without explanation, and the smell of sulfur occasionally fills the air, a scent often associated with the devil during the Puritan era. Paranormal investigators who have studied the house believe the residual energy of Corwin's cruelty has permanently imprinted itself on the site, manifesting as both poltergeist-like activity and spectral visions. Despite its haunted reputation, the Joshua Ward house has remained an important landmark in Salem, drawing curious tourists, history enthusiasts, and paranormal investigators alike. It stands as a reminder of the city's dark past, a past that cannot be paved over or forgotten, no matter how elegant the facade. Those who enter its doors are not merely stepping into a historic mansion. They are walking into the lingering aftermath of a hysteria that claimed dozens of innocent lives. Even today, guests report strange occurrences, Staff members working late have heard heavy footsteps pacing the upper floors when no one else was inside. Visitors on ghost tours sometimes describe sudden cold drafts winding through hallways where all windows are sealed. A few claim to have seen faces peering out from the windows when the house was supposed to be empty. Each story adds another layer to the legend, strengthening the belief that the Joshua Ward House is more than a historical building. It is a vessel for Salem's darkest memories. The town of Salem has tried to embrace its history, both light and dark, as part of its identity. Witch-themed shops, tours, and festivals fill its streets each October. But for many, the Joshua Ward House is no tourist attraction. It is a place where the pain of the past still breathes, where the cries of the innocent mingle with the echoes of the guilty, and where Sheriff George Corwin's legacy of cruelty continues to cast its shadow. For those who visit, the house is a stark reminder that the witch trials were not just stories from history books. They were lived experiences of fear, suffering, and injustice. The Joshua Ward House embodies that lingering grief, its walls absorbing the energy of centuries, holding on to every whisper, every scream, every curse, and until those echoes fade, the house will remain haunted, a permanent monument to Salem's darkest hour. In the heart of Cleveland, Ohio, a sprawling mansion sits on the corner of Franklin Avenue, its dark brick exterior and ornate turrets giving it the unmistakable air of a place built for mystery and misfortune. Known as Franklin Castle, this 19th century home is considered one of the most haunted residences in the United States. Its history is steeped in rumors of murder, tragedy, and unexplained phenomena, and for over a century, visitors and paranormal investigators have reported experiences that defy logic and chill the soul. Franklin Castle was constructed in 1881 by Hans Tiedemann, a wealthy German immigrant who amassed a fortune in banking and real estate. The home itself is a labyrinthian masterpiece, featuring turrets, Gothic archways, hidden rooms, and secret passageways. On the surface, it is a display of wealth and sophistication, but beneath its grandeur lies a history soaked in sorrow, suspicion, and unexplained deaths that have given the mansion a reputation for being cursed. Much of Franklin Castle's eerie reputation centers on the Tiedemann family. Hans lived in the mansion with his wife, Emily, and their children. Despite the opulence of the house, the family was plagued by misfortune. Several of the children died under mysterious circumstances, leading neighbors and historians alike to speculate that the mansion was cursed from the moment it was built. One child, in particular, reportedly fell down a flight of stairs and died, and others succumbed to illnesses that seemed to strike the family with relentless cruelty. The specifics of their deaths are shrouded in mystery, and over time, rumors grew that Hans or Emily may have been involved in foul play, though nothing was ever proven. The home's architecture itself adds to its unsettling aura. Secret doors and passageways allow for strange, sudden appearances and disappearances, and the twisting hallways can leave even the most confident visitor feeling lost. Rooms that were once ballrooms or parlors have become the epicenter of ghostly activity, with chilling cold spots, disembodied voices, and inexplicable noises reported by those brave enough to spend time inside. The air within Franklin Castle is often described as unnaturally cold, heavy with the weight of countless tragedies, making visitors shiver even on warm summer nights. One of the most frequent reports involves ghostly children. Guests have described seeing small figures peering from windows or standing silently in corners, only to vanish when approached. Their eyes are said to glint in the dim light, and their laughter soft, playful, and terrifying echoes through empty hallways. Sometimes toys are found inexplicably moved, as though little hands had been at play in the dark. The presence of these children is not always threatening, but it carries a haunting quality. As if the spirits are eternally bound to the house, trapped between life and death. Other paranormal phenomena reported at Franklin Castle are far more aggressive. Visitors have claimed that furniture moves on its own, doors slam shut without warning, and unseen forces tug at clothing or hair. Some have described cold fingers brushing across their skin, while others have felt an invisible pressure pressing down on their chests, leaving them gasping for breath. The mansion seems to feed on fear, growing more oppressive the longer one remains inside. One of the most infamous tales of Franklin Castle involves a hidden room discovered decades after the mansion was built. Rumors suggest that a secret basement chamber once existed where tragic acts occurred, though the details have never been confirmed. Some believe this room was used as a place of punishment or even murder, and that the tormented souls of its victims remain bound to the mansion. Paranormal investigators often claim to feel intense, malevolent energy in the areas surrounding the supposed hidden room. With electronic equipment failing, sudden cold gusts, and whispers heard from empty corners, local legends also describe apparitions of a tall, shadowy figure believed to be Hans Tiedemann himself, wandering through the hallways. He is often described as standing silently in doorways or peering from staircases, his expression unreadable but imposing. Some witnesses claim he watches intruders with disapproval, while others report that he moves objects, slams doors, or creates a sense of danger without ever appearing physically. The mansion's ghostly activity has been documented in countless investigations, with cameras capturing unexplained shadows, orbs, and spectral figures moving across rooms. Despite its dark history, Franklin Castle has become a destination for thrill-seekers and paranormal enthusiasts. Ghost tours are now held regularly, and many visitors report experiences that are equal parts fascinating and terrifying. Those who spend the night describe long, sleepless hours, punctuated by strange noises, cold drafts, and the ever-present feeling of being watched. Some leave exhilarated, eager to share their encounters, while others leave shaken, haunted by visions and sensations they cannot explain. Even today, Franklin Castle retains its eerie charm. The mansion is a living museum of 19th-century architecture and a window into the mysterious past of the Tiedemann family. Yet it is impossible to separate the beauty from the darkness. Each corner, staircase, and turret seems infused with the energy of generations long gone, some benevolent, some vengeful. Visitors often say that the house feels alive in a way that is profoundly unsettling, as though it is aware of their presence and observing their every move. The legend of Franklin Castle serves as a reminder that wealth and opulence cannot protect a family from misfortune, nor can it shield a home from the echoes of tragedy. Whether the stories of murder, hidden rooms, and ghostly children are true, or whether they are amplified by time and local lore, the effect is undeniable. The mansion continues to draw the curious and the brave, each visitor adding their own chapter to the house's ongoing history of fear and fascination. Walking through Franklin Castle is not merely a tour of a historic home. It is a journey into a place where the past is never fully buried, where the tragedies of the Tiedemann family echo through the halls, and where the spirits of children, shadows, and possibly even the original inhabitants linger in the corners of one's vision. The cold air, the sudden noises, the fleeting glimpses of ghostly figures serve as a chilling reminder that some homes are more than buildings. They are vessels of memory, grief, and lingering unrest. And in Franklin Castle, the past refuses to remain silent. In the heart of Old Town, San Diego, stands a stately Greek Revival home that has earned a chilling reputation as the most haunted house in America. The Whaley House, built in 1857 by Thomas Whaley, has witnessed a staggering amount of death, misfortune, and tragedy over its more than 160-year history. Its walls have absorbed countless stories of sorrow and suffering, and today, those who enter often report encounters with the spirits of the past, making it a must-visit destination for ghost hunters and the curious alike. The story of the Whaley House begins with Thomas Whaley, a successful businessman and civic leader in early San Diego. He constructed the home to serve both as a family residence and as a commercial building, including a store on the first floor. At the time, it was the grandest home in the city, a symbol of prosperity in a rapidly developing town. But despite its outward elegance, the property would soon become the scene of a series of grim and inexplicable events that would haunt the family for generations. One of the earliest and most notorious tragedies occurred even before the house was completed. Thomas Whaley, purchased the land after it had been the site of public hangings, including the execution of James McCoy, a convicted criminal whose body was buried on the property. Some believe that this initial act of death set the tone for the lingering presence that would inhabit the home. Even today, visitors report strange cold spots and feelings of unease that are difficult to explain, as if the spirits of the executed never truly left the grounds. Once the Whaley family moved in, misfortune seemed to follow. Several members of the family died untimely deaths. Infant mortality claimed the lives of young children, and family members succumbed to illnesses that appeared suddenly and without warning. One particularly harrowing story involves Violet Whaley, a young girl who died tragically at a very young age. Her spirit is said to linger in the home, her presence often accompanied by a soft, mournful cry or the faint sound of footsteps racing through empty hallways. Guests often report seeing the ghostly figure of a small child peering out from a window or disappearing around a corner, leaving behind an unsettling sense of being watched. The Whaley house is also known for more violent phenomena. Some believe that the house's history of public hangings and suicides contributes to the aggressive energy that has been reported for decades. Witnesses have described objects moving on their own, doors slamming with enough force to rattle the walls, and chairs or personal items being knocked over without explanation. These occurrences often intensify at night, when the house's quiet elegance transforms into a stage for paranormal activity. Disembodied footsteps echo across creaking floors, sometimes stopping abruptly as though an invisible figure has vanished into thin air. Spectral figures are among the most commonly reported phenomena in the Whaley house. Guests have seen apparitions of Thomas Whaley himself, appearing as a stern, imposing figure who watches silently from a doorway or balcony. Other reports include sightings of family members in period clothing moving through rooms that have long been empty, going about routines that ended decades ago. Some visitors even claim to have felt the brush of a ghostly hand or a sudden, cold presence standing beside them when no one else was there. Photographs taken within the house often reveal unexplained mists, orbs, and shadowy forms that cannot be accounted for by natural light or reflection. One of the most chilling aspects of the Whaley house is the sense of history it carries. Unlike some haunted locations, where the paranormal seems sporadic, the Whaley house offers a consistent and palpable energy that visitors often describe as oppressive. There is a feeling that the house remembers every death, every sorrowful moment, and every traumatic event that occurred within its walls. This lingering presence manifests in subtle but unmistakable ways. The air grows colder, suddenly. A door creaks open without cause, or a faint whisper is carried across the hallway. For those sensitive to such energies, even a brief visit can feel like stepping into another time, one dominated by grief and unfinished business. The house's location in Old Town adds to its eerie reputation. At night, the surrounding streets are quiet, allowing the sounds of the house, whether real or spectral, to carry across the property. Some claim to have seen shadowy figures moving just beyond the windows, or to have heard the sound of heavy boots pacing across floors above them. Paranormal investigators report that electronic equipment often behaves strangely, cameras and audio devices malfunctioning as if the house itself is resisting scrutiny. Despite tour, perhaps because of its haunted history, the Whaley house has become a cultural landmark. It is now a museum, attracting thousands of visitors each year, many of whom come specifically to experience its paranormal activity. Ghost tours are popular, and countless television programs, books, and documentaries have featured the home as one of the most haunted locations in America. Yet for all the fascination it inspires, the Whaley house remains a place where the line between the living and the dead feels impossibly thin. Those who step inside the house often leave with stories that defy rational explanation. Some recall hearing footsteps following them even when no one is behind them. Others have experienced sudden cold spots, whispers in empty rooms, or the feeling of being touched by an unseen presence. Photographs taken during tours sometimes reveal fleeting figures in the background, or inexplicable orbs of light hovering near doorways and corners. Each story adds another layer to the house's legacy. reinforcing its reputation as a place where the past refuses to remain buried. The Whaley House is more than just a haunted home. It is a repository of sorrow, death, and history. Its walls have witnessed hangings, suicides, and countless untimely deaths. Yet, they continue to hold the echoes of life and spirit. For visitors, the experience is both thrilling and terrifying, a reminder that some places carry the weight of their history long after the people who once lived there have passed. Even in the bustling streets of modern San Diego, the Whaley House remains a silent sentinel, a home where the past is never truly gone, and the spirits of the Whaley family and, perhaps those of others who suffered nearby, continue to roam. In Fall River, Massachusetts, a quiet neighborhood hides a house that has become synonymous with one of the most infamous crimes in American history. The Lizzie Borden House, with its stately Victorian architecture and well-kept exterior, seems innocent enough to the casual passerby. But inside, the walls carry the weight of an unspeakable act, a legacy of violence that continues to haunt all who enter. Even over a century later, the home is not just a historic site. It is a place where terror lingers, where the echoes of screams and the shadows of the past refuse to fade. The story begins on a hot August morning in 1892. Andrew and Abby Borden, the wealthy parents of Lizzie Borden, were found brutally murdered in their home. Their daughter, Lizzie, was accused of wielding the hatchet that ended their lives, a charge that shocked the nation. The trial captivated the public, sensationalized by newspapers. And though Lizzie was ultimately acquitted, the stain of that day never left the house. Over the years, countless visitors, historians, and paranormal investigators have reported experiences that suggest the home retains the presence of that horrific morning. Walking through the Lizzie Borden house, the sense of unease is palpable. Guests often report sudden drops in temperature, icy chills that seem to emanate from nowhere. The air feels heavy, pressing down, as though the house itself mourns the tragedy that occurred within its walls. Some describe the sensation of being watched, of eyes following them silently from dark corners. Doors creak open on their own, and at times, the faint sound of footsteps echoes through hallways that are otherwise empty. One of the most common reports involves screams high-pitched, desperate, and echoing faintly as though carried through time. Visitors have described hearing these terrifying sounds while standing in rooms that appear completely undisturbed. Some claim the voices are those of Andrew and Abby Borden, forever trapped in the moments before their deaths. Others feel that Lizzie herself, or the energy associated with her, lingers in the house, a chilling reminder of the violence that stained the family home. Apparitions are also frequently reported. Guests have seen shadowy figures flitting across rooms, their forms indistinct but undeniably human. In some cases, these figures are glimpsed in mirrors, only to vanish when one turns to look directly. One of the most unsettling accounts describes a figure of a woman appearing at the top of the staircase, her face pale and expressionless, before disappearing into thin air. Some believe this to be Lizzie herself, trapped by guilt, fear, or the residual energy of the crime. Others speculate it could be her mother, endlessly reliving the horror of that fatal morning. Even the physical objects in the house seem to respond to the lingering energy. Chairs have been known to move without explanation. Doors slam shut despite being propped open. And personal items are sometimes found in places they could not have been moved to naturally. Some visitors report feeling invisible hands brushing against their arms or shoulders, a touch so light yet so distinct that it leaves a shiver in its wake. The combination of these occurrences creates an atmosphere of constant tension, a sense that the past is never truly gone. The house also contains rooms that hold particular significance in the haunting. The bedroom of Abby Borden, where the fatal blows were delivered, is said to be a hotspot for paranormal activity. The study, where Andrew Borden spent much of his time, is similarly affected, with reports of books falling from shelves, papers rustling without cause, and unexplained noises that mimic the sounds of daily life from over a century ago. Paranormal investigators have documented these phenomena over decades. Cameras capture mysterious shadows, audio devices record disembodied whispers, and infrared sensors detect movement where no living person is present. While skeptics argue that the energy in the house is the product of suggestion, the consistency of reports over decades has convinced many that the Lizzie Borden house is not just historically infamous, but supernaturally active. Some visitors describe encounters that go beyond the senses, experiences that feel deeply personal. A guest might suddenly feel intense anxiety or fear. Others describe visions, flashes of violence, fleeting glimpses of a struggle, or the sense of standing in the presence of someone who has long been dead. These experiences leave an impression long after leaving the home, as though the house imprints itself on all who enter. Despite or perhaps because of its dark reputation, the Lizzie Borden house has become a site of fascination. Tours are offered regularly, providing historical context alongside the spine-chilling reports from past visitors. Many come hoping to witness the paranormal firsthand, some out of morbid curiosity, others seeking proof of the supernatural. No matter the motivation, the house never disappoints. Those who step inside are met with an atmosphere thick with tension, a lingering sense of dread, and the unshakable impression that the past is very much alive. Over a century after the infamous murders, the Lizzie Borden house continues to captivate and terrify. It stands as a testament to the lasting impact of violent acts, a reminder that some moments in history leave an imprint far beyond the lives involved. Every creak of the floorboards, every sudden chill, every unexplained shadow serves as a whisper from the past, a reminder that the horrors of that August morning have never truly faded. The house does not just preserve history, it preserves the energy of tragedy, the weight of fear, and the restless spirits of those who cannot leave. In the small, quiet town of Villisca, Iowa, there stands a modest, two-story house that has become one of the most infamous and chilling locations in American history. Known as the Villisca Axe Murder House, this home is remembered not for its architecture or charm, but for a gruesome event that occurred one summer night in 1912, a night that still haunts the walls, the rooms, and the air that surrounds it. What should have been an ordinary evening for the Moore family and their two young visiting children turned into a nightmare, so horrifying that it continues to send shivers down the spines of those who visit. On the night of June 9, 1912, Josiah and Sarah Moore, along with their 4 children, prepared for bed in the quiet of their home. 2 young friends, Lena and Ina Stillinger, were staying over, enjoying an evening of games and laughter. But as darkness fell over the town, a killer entered the house, wielding an axe. By the morning, all 8 occupants of the home were found brutally murdered in their beds. The bloodshed was almost incomprehensible, the precision of the attacks chillingly methodical. Each life was taken swiftly, the horror etched into the wooden floors, the bedrooms, and the very walls of the house. Despite an intensive investigation, the murderer was never identified. Over the years, the crime has remained unsolved, leaving the house steeped in mystery and dread. Locals whispered theories, ranging from a vengeful neighbor to a drifter passing through town. Some believed it to be the work of a psychopathic killer, while others suggested darker, supernatural causes. Whatever the explanation, the house itself became a vessel for tragedy, holding on to the energy of that terrible night in ways that are still felt by anyone who enters. Visitors to the Villisca Axe Murder House often report an immediate sense of unease upon stepping through the front door. The air feels heavy, charged with something unseen but profoundly oppressive. Many describe the feeling of being watched, a sensation of eyes following every movement, as though the spirits of the victims are still present, unable to rest. Cold spots appear unexpectedly, even in summer, and shadows seem to move along the corners of the rooms, just out of the corner of one's vision. The bedrooms, where the tragedy unfolded, are particularly active. Paranormal investigators have documented objects moving on their own, lamps tipping over, doors swinging open and closed, and beds shifting as if invisible hands have disturbed them. Some guests have claimed to feel the brush of tiny hands on their arms or shoulders, or to hear soft, whispered giggles and cries that could only belong to children. The sounds are often accompanied by footsteps pacing the floorboards above, though no one is present. These manifestations are unnerving enough to make even the bravest leave the house with a profound sense of unease. One of the most haunting aspects of the house is the reports of disembodied voices. Guests describe hearing faint whispers calling their names, or children's laughter echoing through empty rooms. At times, the voices seem to mimic familiar patterns of speech, repeating phrases that sound as though they are trying to communicate something, yet the words are almost unintelligible. Some investigators have recorded these sounds on audio equipment, capturing the faint cries of children that were not audible at the time. These recordings, when played back, send chills down the spine and confirm what many have experienced firsthand. The house is alive with the presence of the past. The layout of the house itself contributes to the feeling of dread. Narrow hallways twist in ways that make the space feel confining, and the original wooden floors creak under the lightest steps. Rooms that once held laughter now seem frozen in time, each corner holding shadows that feel heavy with memory. Some visitors claim to see figures standing silently in the darkened windows, only to vanish when approached. Others report sudden, inexplicable drops in temperature, the chills so intense it feels as though the air itself is trying to push them away. Paranormal investigations in the Villisca Axe murder house have been ongoing for decades. Cameras often capture strange orbs of light, shadowy forms, and movements that cannot be explained by natural causes. Some researchers have reported sensations of nausea or dizziness, as though the house's dark energy affects the body as well as the mind. Guests who spend the night frequently wake to the feeling of someone or something watching them, or the soft, echoing sounds of children whispering in the darkness. The house has become a destination for thrill seekers, historians, and paranormal enthusiasts. It is preserved much as it was the night of the murders, with beds and furnishings arranged to reflect the period, creating an unsettling reminder of the lives that were lost. Many who come to explore do so with curiosity, hoping to catch a glimpse of the unexplained. Yet even the most skeptical visitors often leave shaken, recounting experiences that defy logic. Shadows moving independently of light, cold spots in the middle of a warm summer evening, and the unmistakable feeling that the children who died in the house are still present, trapped in the space where their lives were violently ended. Despite more than a century passing, the Villisca Axe murder house has not relinquished its dark energy. Its walls absorb every scream, every movement, every terror experienced within. And visitors can sense it as soon as they step through the door. The house is more than a historical site. It is a repository of tragedy, a vessel of unresolved sorrow and rage. Those who enter may leave with a story of paranormal phenomena, or they may leave with nothing at all, but they could not escape the feeling that the house itself is alive, and that the memories of that fateful night in 1912 are etched into its very foundation. The Villisca Axe murder house is a chilling reminder that some places cannot forget. The echoes of violence, the whispers of children, and the oppressive atmosphere continue to haunt every room. For those who dare to enter, the experience is unforgettable, a confrontation with the lingering presence of a crime that remains unsolved, and the restless souls of 8 innocent lives lost too soon. In the bustling city of San Jose, California, there exists a mansion unlike any other, a sprawling, enigmatic structure that has fascinated and terrified visitors for over a century. Known as the Winchester Mystery House, it is a labyrinth of staircases leading nowhere, doors that open into walls, hidden passageways, and hallways that twist and turn like a living organism. The house was built under the direction of Sarah Winchester, widow of the heir to the Winchester rifle fortune, and it is said she designed it to appease the restless spirits of those killed by Winchester firearms. Today, the mansion remains a place where history, obsession, and the supernatural converge, and those who enter often leave with stories of ghostly encounters, inexplicable phenomena, and an overwhelming sense of being watched. Sarah Winchester inherited a vast fortune after the deaths of her husband and child, and legend holds that she sought guidance from mediums and spiritualists. One claimed that the spirits of those slain by Winchester rifles was seeking revenge and that her own life would be in danger. unless she built a home to honor them and confuse them. Acting on this advice, Sarah purchased a property in San Jose in 1884 and began constructing what would become an ever-expanding, ever-changing mansion. Work continued day and night, often with teams of builders laboring under her direction, and remarkably, construction persisted almost continuously for 38 years, until her death in 1922. The house is a maze by design. Staircases lead to ceilings, doors open into blank walls, and hallways suddenly end in dead ends. Windows overlook other rooms instead of the outside world, and rooms appear and disappear within the floor plan, as if shifting to accommodate some unseen purpose. Sarah claimed the layout was meant to confuse the spirits, ensuring they could never rest. Walking through the mansion today, visitors often report a sense of disorientation, as if the building itself is alive, subtly moving around them, reshaping the interior to maintain its mystery. Paranormal activity is said to permeate the Winchester Mystery House. Guests frequently report hearing footsteps in empty hallways, doors opening and closing on their own, and the faint sounds of whispers that seem to come from the walls themselves. Some describe sudden chills, cold spots that linger in rooms where no ventilation exists, or the feeling of being followed, watched by unseen eyes. Many visitors note a pervasive sense of unease, a creeping anxiety that cannot be explained by the architectural oddities alone. Shadowy figures are another commonly reported phenomenon. Witnesses have described glimpsing fleeting shapes moving at the edges of their vision, disappearing when looked at directly, or silhouettes descending staircases that lead nowhere. Others feel invisible hands brush their arms or shoulders, sometimes gently, sometimes with an almost urgent insistence. Paranormal investigators have claimed to capture orbs of light on camera, and audio recordings occasionally reveal disembodied voices whispering unintelligible words or calling the names of those present. Certain areas of the house are hotspots of activity. The famous staircase to nowhere, for instance, has been the site of multiple ghost sightings. Guests report seeing figures walking up the stairs and vanishing into the ceiling, as though entering another realm. Other rooms contain hidden doors that creak open by themselves, revealing closets or passageways that seem impossibly out of place. Windows that overlook other rooms instead of the outside create a disorienting effect, and some visitors swear they have felt the presence of a spirit staring back at them from behind the glass. Sarah Winchester herself is said to haunt the property. Some witnesses report seeing a woman in a long, flowing dress wandering the halls or seated at a window, gazing outward but never blinking, as if observing intruders silently. Others have described catching glimpses of a woman's reflection in mirrors or polished surfaces, only to find the reflection gone when they turn to look. Many who explore the mansion overnight feel that her presence is palpable, a silent guardian of the sprawling labyrinth she spent nearly 4 decades constructing. The mansion's unusual architecture amplifies the supernatural experiences. Hallways are narrow and long, ceilings are low in some rooms and impossibly high in others, and staircases often require visitors to navigate abrupt drops or lead to suspended platforms with no obvious exit. This disorientation seems to heighten the awareness of the paranormal, as the human mind struggles to reconcile what is seen with what is expected. Guests often report the sensation of time stretching, hearing sounds that cannot be traced, and feeling compelled to leave certain rooms abruptly, as though some invisible force guides their movement. Even in the daytime, the Winchester Mystery House exudes an air of mystery and unease. Tour guides frequently share accounts of unexplained phenomena from past visitors, and some have personally experienced chills, strange noises, or shadows moving in the corner of their eyes. Overnight visitors, especially those who participate in paranormal investigations, often describe the house as alive with restless energy, a place where the boundary between the living and the dead feels thin, where spirits of the past continue to wander endlessly through the maze that Sarah Winchester meticulously designed for them. Over the years, the mansion has become both a historic landmark and a destination for those seeking a brush with the supernatural. Countless books, television programs, and documentaries have chronicled its strange history and unexplained activity. Tourists come to marvel at its architectural oddities and to experience firsthand the haunting that has captivated generations. And while some leave amused or skeptical, others leave with stories of shadows, whispers, and fleeting touches that refuse to be explained. The Winchester Mystery House is more than just a strange building. It is a monument to grief, guilt, and obsession. Transformed into a labyrinth meant to appease spirits that cannot rest, the restless energy within its walls has persisted for decades, and for those who enter, it is impossible not to feel it. Every creaking floorboard, every hidden doorway, every abrupt staircase serves as a reminder that this house was never ordinary. It was a sanctuary for the dead, a puzzle for the living, and a home where the line between life and the afterlife has always been disturbingly thin. Those who wander the endless halls of the Winchester Mystery House often leave with a sense of awe mixed with fear. The architecture, the history, and the stories of restless spirits combine to create an experience that is both fascinating and profoundly unsettling. Visitors are reminded that some buildings are more than structures. They are vessels for memory, energy, and the unknown. And in San Jose, the Winchester Mystery House remains a labyrinth where ghosts wander eternally, where the past and the supernatural coexists, and where every turn brings the possibility of encountering the unseen. In the quiet town of St. Francisville, Louisiana, surrounded by cypress trees and the slow, winding waters of the Mississippi River, stands the Myrtles Plantation, a mansion steeped in history, wealth, and tragedy. Often described as one of the most haunted homes in America, the Myrtles Plantation has captured the imagination of locals, historians, and paranormal investigators alike. From its grand exterior to the sprawling grounds, every corner of the estate seems to hum with restless energy, a lingering reminder of the lives lost and the secrets buried within its walls. The plantation was built in 1796 by General David Bradford. But over the centuries, it became infamous not just for its size and elegance, but for the tragedies that unfolded within. Some claim the estate is built atop a Native American burial ground, a foundation already steeped in sorrow and unrest. Others point to the human suffering that took place on the plantation itself, deaths from disease, accidental poisonings, and the torment of enslaved individuals. Among the spirits said to haunt the property, none is more well known than Chloe, a slave who was reportedly mistreated and whose life ended violently within the home. Her presence is said to linger in every corner of the mansion, a shadowy reminder of cruelty and vengeance. Visitors to the Myrtles Plantation frequently report a chilling atmosphere from the moment they enter. The air is often described as heavy, carrying a sense of foreboding that seems to settle into the bones. Many recount feeling icy drafts in rooms with closed windows, as if unseen hands are passing through. Footsteps echo along the wooden floors where no one walks, and doors creak open or slam shut without warning. Some have experienced the sensation of being watched, an invisible gaze following them through hallways, up staircases, and into bedrooms where the energy feels particularly strong. The story of Chloe, the plantation's most famous spirit, is particularly unsettling. Legend has it that she baked a poisoned cake intended to harm her masters, though some versions claim she was punished for a minor infraction. In the chaos that followed, Chloe was hanged, but her spirit remained, refusing to leave the place where her life was ended. Guests and staff have reported seeing a woman in period clothing roaming the halls, her dark eyes staring from corners, her expression a mixture of sorrow and malice. Some claim to hear faint whispers warning of danger, or the sound of someone walking briskly behind them only to vanish when they turn. Children's spirits are also said to be present on the plantation. Many photographs taken inside the house reveal unexplained figures, small ghostly forms standing silently in doorways, or shadowy shapes captured mid-motion in rooms that appear empty. Witnesses have described seeing children peering from windows, appearing suddenly and disappearing just as quickly, their faces expressionless or frozen in sorrow. At times, the laughter of unseen children is reported echoing through the halls. Though it carries a haunting quality, distant and unsettling rather than joyful. Paranormal investigators have documented strange phenomena throughout the property. Orbs of light frequently appear in photographs, sometimes hovering in doorways or drifting through rooms where no living person is present. Electronic devices malfunction unexpectedly, and recording equipment occasionally picks up disembodied voices, whispers, cries, or even indistinct conversations that vanish as quickly as they are detected. Some investigators have reported feeling sudden pressure on their chests or arms, a physical sensation as if a spirit is attempting to make contact or assert its presence. The plantation grounds themselves are not exempt from the haunting. Guests report seeing shadowy figures moving among the trees, especially near the old slave quarters and the main house. The ancient oak trees and dense foliage seem to amplify the feeling of unease, creating shadows that shift and move in ways that are difficult to explain. At night, strange lights have been spotted gliding over the lawns, sometimes appearing as glowing orbs or faint silhouettes that vanish when approached. Visitors walking the grounds alone often describe a sensation of being followed, their steps echoed by unseen companions. Inside the house, certain rooms are particularly active. Bedrooms where tragic deaths occurred are often the sites of cold spots, sudden drops in temperature, and inexplicable noises. Doors creak or bang without cause, and furniture sometimes moves as if nudged by invisible hands. Guests recount feeling as though they are not alone, sensing presences that pass close by, only to vanish when acknowledged. Mirrors have been known to reveal ghostly reflections, fleeting images of faces that do not belong to any living occupant. The Myrtles plantation is also a repository of sorrow and grief. Death, misfortune, and human cruelty have left deep impressions that many believe have imprinted themselves upon the very structure of the home. Visitors often leave with stories that defy rational explanation. Lights flickering in empty rooms, footsteps echoing down hallways, and the oppressive sense of energy that seems to cling to every surface. Some describe dreams or visions after visiting, vivid images of people long gone, reliving moments of fear or anguish within the plantation. Despite tour because of its haunting reputation, the Myrtles plantation has become a site of fascination for tourists and paranormal enthusiasts. Tours highlight both the historical significance and the supernatural lore of the property, giving visitors a glimpse into its tragic past and its enduring mysteries. Those who step inside are warned that the house is not merely a relic of history, but a place where the past continues to breathe, where spirits roam freely, and where the boundary between the living and the dead feels disturbingly thin. The Myrtles plantation stands today as a monument to lives lost, to pain inflicted and endured, and to the mysteries that have never been solved. Each creak of the floorboards, each shadow cast by flickering candlelight, and every unexplained chill serves as a reminder that the house is alive in ways most cannot fully comprehend. For those who dare to enter, the experience is both fascinating and unsettling, a confrontation with restless spirits, lingering sorrow, and the dark energy that has defined the plantation for over 2 centuries. On a quiet street in Amityville, New York, a stately Dutch colonial home sits at 112 Ocean Avenue, its exterior calm and unassuming. Yet within these walls, one of the most infamous and terrifying chapters of American paranormal history unfolded. The Amityville house is synonymous with horror, not merely for the gruesome murders that occurred there, but for the seemingly malevolent energy that has plagued every subsequent occupant. Stories of demonic faces, blood seeping from walls, and terrifying presences have cemented its reputation as one of the most haunted houses in the United States. The darkness began in November 1974, when Ronald DeFeo Jr. murdered his entire family in their beds. 6 members of the DeFeo family, parents, children, and siblings, were shot at close range while sleeping, leaving the town in shock and fear. The house itself became infamous almost overnight, as neighbors recalled strange sounds and odd occurrences in the nights leading up to the murders. Some claimed to have seen glowing eyes staring from the windows or heard unsettling noises coming from the house long before the tragedy. The violence of that night left an indelible mark, and many believe the house absorbed the horror, creating an energy that would linger long after the DeFeos were gone. In December 1975, just over a year after the murders, George and Kathleen Lutz purchased the home, unaware or perhaps dismissive its grim past. Almost immediately, they began to experience phenomena that defied explanation. The incidents were subtle at first: cold spots that appeared in random rooms, doors opening and closing on their own, and the sensation of being watched. But soon, the activity escalated to terrifying levels, confirming the worst fears of skeptics and believers alike. One of the most chilling reports from the Lutz family involved the appearance of faces in the windows. On multiple occasions, they claimed to see grotesque, demonic visages staring at them from outside, only to vanish when approached. These faces were described as twisted, horrifying, and unmistakably malicious, as if some unseen force was warning them to leave. The intensity of these apparitions created an atmosphere of dread that seemed to infiltrate every room, turning what should have been a comfortable home into a place of constant terror. Even more disturbing were the reports of blood appearing inside the house. Kathleen Lutz described waking to find red stains seeping from the walls and furniture, only to have them disappear without explanation. Doors and windows would slam violently on their own, sometimes repeatedly throughout the day, and objects often moved as if guided by an invisible hand. The family also reported hearing disembodied voices chanting, whispering threats, and even commanding them to leave. These experiences culminated in an overwhelming sense of malevolence, a feeling that the house itself was alive, aware, and hostile. The paranormal activity was not limited to auditory or visual experiences. George Lutz claimed that he experienced violent, unexplained changes in behavior, including sudden rages and emotional outbursts that he could not control. Kathleen described objects flying across rooms, lights turning on and off by themselves, and doors that remained locked or unlocked without explanation. Even the family's dog reportedly reacted with terror, barking and growling at invisible presences and refusing to enter certain rooms. Every aspect of daily life within the house became distorted by the sense of malevolent energy that seemed to permeate the walls, the floors, and the ceilings. Investigators and journalists who visited the house also reported unusual phenomena. Cameras occasionally captured shadows or strange shapes that did not match any living occupants, while audio equipment picked up faint whispers and eerie sounds. Some visitors even reported nausea, dizziness, or feelings of overwhelming dread while inside, sensations that dissipated once they left the property. These accounts added to the house's growing notoriety, fueling a legend that would endure for decades. The history of the house, combined with the gruesome murders and subsequent reports of hauntings, has created a narrative that continues to fascinate and terrify. Books, documentaries, and films have been inspired by the events at 112 Ocean Avenue, each retelling amplifying the eerie reputation of the property. Despite skepticism from some corners, the sheer number and consistency of paranormal reports over the years have made it a central location in discussions of haunted homes and demonic activity. Visitors to the site today often report an oppressive sense of dread, even from outside the property. The energy of the house seems to linger in the air, invisible yet palpable. Those who step inside recount stories of icy chills, the feeling of unseen eyes following them, and faint whispers that vanish when investigated. The house, despite its ordinary appearance, continues to exert a psychological and emotional pull. A reminder that the events of 1974 and the disturbances that followed were more than just isolated incidents. They were the beginning of a haunting that refuses to end. The Amityville house serves as a chilling reminder of the intersection of human violence and the paranormal. The murders by Ronald DeFeo Jr. left behind a darkness that seems to have taken on a life of its own, influencing the behavior, emotions, and perceptions of anyone who dares to live there. George and Kathleen Lutz's experiences are only the most well-documented chapter in a story that spans decades. A story in which the house itself is a character malevolent, intelligent, and relentless. In the heart of New Orleans, French Quarter stands a mansion that, on the surface, appears to be the epitome of Southern elegance. Its Rottian balconies, ornate columns, and immaculate facade mask a history so dark and horrifying that the building has become synonymous with terror. The Lalaurie Mansion, once the home of socialite Madame Delphine Lalaurie, is remembered not for its beauty, but for the unspeakable horrors that took place within its walls. Over 180 years later, whispers of anguish, shadowy figures, and restless spirits continue to haunt those who dared to enter. Madame Lalaurie was a prominent figure in New Orleans society during the early 19th century. She entertained the city's elite, hosting lavish parties that masked the true nature of her home. Behind the grand exterior, however, enslaved people were subjected to unimaginable suffering. Stories from the time described acts of torture that defy comprehension: shackling, mutilation, and cruel experiments performed under the guise of discipline. The mansion became a chamber of nightmares, where the cries of the enslaved were hidden behind walls and doors, yet could never be fully silenced. The house's dark history came to public attention in 1834, when a fire broke out in the mansion. Neighbors rushed to help and discovered a scene of horror. The revelation shocked the city, but Madame Lalaurie managed to escape, evading justice for her crimes. Despite the passage of time, the mansion's reputation for malevolence has never faded. Visitors to the Lalaurie Mansion report a profound sense of dread even before crossing the threshold. The air around the property feels heavy, charged with invisible energy. Some describe sudden chills that grip their bodies in the middle of warm afternoons. Others feel the sensation of being watched, a gaze from unseen eyes following their every movement. Even during daylight hours, the house exudes an oppressive aura, as if the memories of suffering have been absorbed into its walls, refusing to fade. Inside, the mansion is said to be alive with paranormal activity. Guests report hearing anguished cries echoing through hallways, whispers of pain that seem to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. Footsteps are heard along creaking floors, often stopping abruptly when the listener turns to investigate. Doors swing open and shut of their own accord, and furniture sometimes shifts as if pushed by invisible hands. Some visitors report feeling sudden, icy touches on their arms or shoulders, sensations so real that they leave bruises or lasting unease. Shadowy figures are frequently reported, glimpsed at the periphery of vision or reflected in mirrors. Some appear as pale, emaciated forms, moving silently through the halls, while others are described as fleeting shapes, vanishing when approached. Witnesses often sense a presence standing close behind them, only to find the room empty when they turn. Many believe these figures are the spirits of the enslaved, trapped between worlds, eternally bound to the mansion by the violence and cruelty they endured. Certain areas of the house are said to be particularly active. Rooms once used to confine or punish enslaved people are hotspots of paranormal phenomena. Visitors recount hearing chains rattle, whispers pleading for release, or the sound of dragging feet along the floors. Some describe visions of figures suffering in the corners of rooms, faces contorted with pain, their eyes meeting the observers before disappearing. Mirrors in these rooms are particularly unnerving. They sometimes reflect movements or figures not present in the physical space, reinforcing the sense that the past is alive and watching. Even the exterior of the mansion carries its sinister legacy. Neighbors have reported strange lights flickering behind curtained windows at night, silhouettes moving in rooms that are otherwise empty, and unexplained shadows cast across the street. Some have heard cries or moans drifting through the French Quarter, tracing back to the mansion, though the source cannot be identified. The aura of evil surrounding the house seems to extend beyond its walls, permeating the surrounding neighborhood with lingering dread. Paranormal investigators have visited the Lalaurie Mansion for decades, documenting phenomena that defy rational explanation. Cameras capture shadowy figures, orbs, and mists moving through rooms, while audio equipment records disembodied voices and screams. Guests often experience nausea, dizziness, or overwhelming anxiety while inside, sensations that vanish once they leave. Even those skeptical of the supernatural frequently report an intuitive sense of fear, as though the mansion itself is aware of their presence, judging and observing them. The legend of the Lalaurie Mansion has grown over time, fueled by a combination of historical accounts and first-hand experiences. Books, documentaries, and television programs have chronicled the horrors of Madame Lalaurie's reign and the persistent hauntings that followed. Yet even with widespread attention, the mansion retains an air of mystery. No matter how often it is studied or visited, the house refuses to relinquish its secrets or the spirits that haunt it. Walking through the Lalaurie Mansion is an encounter with history that refuses to remain in the past. The elegance of the architecture belies the suffering that occurred within its walls. Each creak of the floorboards, each gust of unexplained cold air, and each whisper of a distant voice serves as a reminder that the horrors of the 19th century continue to resonate today. Visitors leave with more than just stories. They carry an impression of the cruelty, the anguish, and the restless spirits that linger. The Lalaurie Mansion is more than a historical site. It is a monument to human cruelty and its consequences. The spirits of the enslaved, unable to find peace, continue to haunt the halls, their presence a constant testament to the suffering that occurred within this home, even in modern New Orleans, surrounded by the lively sounds of the French Quarter. The mansion stands as a dark sentinel, reminding all who pass that some places are forever marked by tragedy, and some spirits are never released from the horrors of their past. In the heart of Washington, D.C., stands a historic mansion whose very walls seem to breathe with the echoes of the past. Known as the Octagon House, it was built in 1799 for Colonel John Taylor III, a wealthy Virginia planter and businessman. While its elegant architecture and stately presence reflect the grandeur of the early republic, the house is equally known for its dark history and enduring haunting. Over 2 centuries, it has witnessed tragedies, mysterious deaths, and inexplicable phenomena that have left visitors and historians alike unsettled. Today, the Octagon House is not only a historic landmark, but a site where ghostly footsteps, screams, and shadowy figures continue to stir the imagination and fear of all who enter. The Octagon House has always been intertwined with history and intrigue. Following the burning of the White House in 1814 during the War of 1812, President James Madison and his wife, Dolly Madison, temporarily used the house as their residence. During that time, it is said that the young First Lady encountered experiences that were both strange and unsettling. Some claim that Dolly herself never fully left the home, her spirit lingering in the grand hallways, silently observing those who enter, maintaining her connection to a place that once sheltered her during one of the nation's darkest hours. But the history of the Octagon House is not limited to political significance. Over the years, several mysterious deaths occurred within its walls. While records are sparse, rumors of sudden, unexplained illnesses, fatal accidents, and tragic incidents have circulated among local historians and longtime residents. These deaths, coupled with the home's connection to prominent historical figures, seem to have left a residue of sorrow and unrest. Many visitors report that the air inside the house feels unusually heavy, as though the weight of these past tragedies presses down on anyone who crosses the threshold. One of the most commonly reported phenomena at the Octagon House is the sound of ghostly footsteps. Visitors walking through the grand staircases or long hallways often hear the soft but deliberate sound of shoes striking the floor behind them, only to find that no one is there. Sometimes the footsteps echo up the stairs in unison with their own, creating the chilling sensation that another presence is walking alongside them. In other instances, the steps are accompanied by sudden drops in temperature, cold spots that form without explanation, as though invisible figures pass directly through the air around them. Screams have also been reported. Guests describe hearing sudden, piercing cries that seem to come from the upper floors or hidden corners of the house. The sound is sharp, echoing, and filled with anguish, yet when searched for, it disappears into the silence. Some witnesses claim that these cries are the echoes of the tragic deaths that occurred in the mansion, or perhaps the tormented voices of spirits tied to the home's historical events. The combination of footsteps and screams creates an atmosphere of unease so palpable that even skeptical visitors often feel compelled to leave the house after a short stay. Shadowy figures are another frequently reported occurrence. Some guests have glimpsed silhouettes at the edge of vision shapes that move with intention, disappearing when looked at directly. Others describe seeing figures descending the grand staircases, standing in doorways, or moving silently through rooms that have been long unoccupied. A few accounts suggest the figure of a woman in period dress, thought by some to be Dolly Madison, gliding through the halls or pausing to observe those who enter. Witnesses often report an overwhelming feeling of being watched, as if the house itself is alive with consciousness, aware of every movement within it. Paranormal investigators have been drawn to the Octagon House for decades, documenting phenomena that defy explanation. Audio recordings have captured faint whispers and indistinct murmurs that seem to come from nowhere, while cameras have occasionally picked up shadows or orbs in rooms devoid of light. Some investigators have even experienced dizziness, sudden chills, or feelings of anxiety that vanish upon leaving the premises, as though the energy within the house is uniquely capable of affecting both mind and body. Even the architecture of the Octagon House contributes to its eerie ambiance. Its unusual eight-sided design, narrow hallways, and hidden corners create disorienting spaces that seem to amplify the supernatural activity. Staircases twist in ways that make sounds echo unpredictably, and rooms with high ceilings can carry even the softest noises into haunting reverberations. Visitors often describe a sensation of temporal dislocation, as though the house allows them to sense past events overlapping with the present, glimpsing echoes of lives long gone. Local legends suggest that not all spirits are benign. Some are said to manifest with anger or frustration, reacting to the presence of the living with subtle but disturbing phenomena. Objects moved or toppled, doors slamming unexpectedly, or lights flickering without cause. Others are thought to be residual, replaying moments of sorrow or tragedy without awareness of the present, haunting the hallways in endless loops of their final days. Regardless of the nature of these spirits, their presence is unmistakable to those sensitive to paranormal energy. The Octagon House remains a focal point for those interested in history and the supernatural alike. Tours and investigations offer glimpses into its storied past, yet many who step inside are struck not just by the historical significance, but by the oppressive atmosphere that lingers. The combination of tragic events, historical resonance, and reported paranormal activity creates a unique and unsettling experience. Visitors often leave with accounts of sounds, sensations, or visions that defy rational explanation. Evidence of a house that refuses to let its history remain buried. Walking through the Octagon House is a journey into a place where history and the supernatural intersect. Every creak of the staircase, every whisper of wind through the corridors, and every fleeting shadow serves as a reminder that the house is more than a building. It is a repository of memory, sorrow, and energy that refuses to fade. Whether it is the footsteps of past occupants, the anguished cries of those who died mysteriously, or the lingering presence of Dolly Madison herself, the Octagon House stands as a haunting testament to the past. A place where the boundary between the living and the dead remains disturbingly thin. Nestled in the Blue Ridge Mountains of Asheville, North Carolina, the Biltmore Estate stands as a testament to grandeur and ambition. Built by George Washington Vanderbilt in the late 19th century, it is America's largest private home, boasting 250 rooms, sprawling gardens, and lavish halls that reflect the opulence of the Gilded Age. Yet behind its elegant architecture and meticulously maintained grounds, the Biltmore Estate is rumored to harbor secrets far darker than wealth or prestige. Guests and staff alike have reported ghostly activity that suggests the presence of restless spirits, lingering echoes of the estate's past, and an energy that refuses to fade even after more than a century. Many of the reports center on the figure of George Vanderbilt himself. Visitors have described feeling an invisible presence, watching them as they move through the vast halls. Some claim to hear the faint sound of a man's voice, calm yet authoritative, drifting through the corridors or whispering in rooms that are otherwise empty. Others report sudden chills, a drop in temperature that seems to follow them, as if the spirit of the estate's original owner is still roaming, observing, and perhaps protecting the home he built. These encounters often leave a lasting impression, a subtle unease that accompanies visitors long after they have left the property. The estate's expansive gardens and recreational areas are also hotspots of paranormal activity. The Biltmore House includes a large indoor pool and extensive grounds for leisure, but these seemingly serene spaces have their own share of eerie stories. Guests and employees have reported hearing laughter echoing across the pool deck, though no one is present. The sound is described as both joyful and hollow, a ghostly remnant of parties or family gatherings from decades past. Some have claimed to see figures moving just beyond the edge of vision, disappearing when approached, or fleeting reflections in the water that do not match any living person. These experiences suggest that the estate's social history, filled with celebrations and private moments, has left an indelible imprint on its environment. Inside the mansion, the sheer size and complexity of the Biltmore estate contribute to its unsettling atmosphere. Long, winding hallways, staircases that twist in unexpected ways, and hidden alcoves create a labyrinthine effect. Visitors often report the sensation of being followed down corridors or feeling an unseen presence near them. Doors open or close without warning, chandeliers sway imperceptibly, and objects sometimes shift from their original positions. Some staff members have recounted experiences where paintings appear slightly askew when no one has entered the room, or furniture seems to have been disturbed overnight. The cumulative effect is a sense that the mansion itself is alive, carrying the energy of its past inhabitants. Guest rooms, too, have their share of stories. Many visitors have experienced strange occurrences in the bedrooms, sudden drafts, cold spots that seem to follow them, and unexplained noises like whispers or footsteps. Some have reported seeing fleeting shapes in mirrors or the corner of a room, shadows that vanish when fully observed. One of the most commonly reported sensations is the feeling of being gently touched or guided by an invisible hand, a unnerving experience that can leave visitors startled and disoriented. These personal encounters suggest that the spirits at Biltmore are not confined to one area, but instead roam freely, moving through the vast estate as if it were still a home rather than a historic monument. The dining rooms and ballrooms, where lavish parties were once held, are also said to retain echoes of the past. Guests have reported hearing the faint clink of glasses, soft music, or laughter that seems to emanate from the walls themselves. Some claim to catch glimpses of figures in period clothing, standing along the balconies or moving across the marble floors, disappearing when approached. Paranormal investigators have documented audio anomalies, including unexplained voices and footsteps, and have captured orbs and shadowy shapes in photographs. While skeptics attribute some of these phenomena to the mansion's acoustics or the imagination, the consistency and frequency of reports suggest that the estate may indeed hold a supernatural presence. Even the staff of the Biltmore estate acknowledge the strange energy that permeates the property. Employees working late in offices or maintenance areas have reported sudden temperature drops, feelings of being watched, and inexplicable sounds that vanish when investigated. Night security personnel, in particular, have recounted stories of hearing footsteps echoing through empty halls, lights flickering on and off, and doors opening despite being securely locked. These encounters, combined with guest reports, suggest that the estate's spectral activity is not limited to one group or type of visitor, but is experienced across generations of those who enter. The grounds themselves are steeped in history, and many believe the spirits are connected to both George Vanderbilt and the staff who lived and worked in the mansion over the years. Servants, gardeners, and family members all contributed to the life of the estate, and some suggest that the lingering energy is a combination of the personal histories of those who called the mansion home. Whether it is the echo of laughter, the footsteps of unseen figures, The estate seems to retain an ongoing connection to its past inhabitants, allowing their presence to remain palpable to the living. Visitors often leave the Biltmore estate with more than photographs and memories of architectural grandeur. They carry stories of inexplicable phenomena that defy rational explanation. The sensation of being watched, the eerie laughter from the pool, and the ghostly footsteps in the hallways linger in their minds, a reminder that history is never truly gone. At Biltmore, the past is not just preserved in artifacts and rooms, but continues to exist in the form of spirits, energy, and memories that refuse to fade. The Biltmore estate is more than a historic home. It is a living monument to the past, where beauty and terror coexist. The spirits of George Vanderbilt, his family, and those who served the estate continue to wander its halls, reminding visitors that even the grandest homes can harbor the darkest mysteries. For those who walk through its rooms and gardens, the experience is unforgettable, an encounter with history, luxury, and the unseen, all intertwined in a mansion that seems to pulse with life long after its original occupants have passed. The White House, an iconic symbol of American power and history, is known worldwide for its grandeur, political significance, and the leaders who have walked its halls. Yet behind the polished exterior and the meticulously manicured lawns lies a history that is not only political but profoundly supernatural. For centuries, visitors, staff, and even presidents themselves have reported eerie occurrences, strange sounds, and ghostly apparitions that suggest the White House is not merely the home of the nation. As leaders, it is also a house haunted by the echoes of the past. Perhaps the most famous of these spectral residents is Abraham Lincoln, the 16th President of the United States. Lincoln's presence has been reported by multiple presidents, White House staff, and even First Ladies. Some describe seeing a tall, shadowy figure in Lincoln's iconic top hat, standing silently in hallways or seated in the Oval Office, lost in thought. Others report the sensation of being watched, a subtle pressure in the air that follows them as they move through rooms Lincoln once occupied. First-hand accounts suggest that Lincoln's spirit is not malicious, but there is an undeniable weight to his presence, a lingering reflection of a man who bore the tremendous burdens of leadership during one of the nation's darkest hours. The hauntings of the White House are not limited to Lincoln alone. Visitors frequently report phantom knocks on doors, the creak of floorboards when no one is present, and unexplained sounds echoing through the hallways. In some cases, doors open and close by themselves, or lights flicker without electrical explanation. These phenomena are not confined to one area of the residence. They have been reported in the West Wing, the East Wing, the Lincoln bedroom, and even the grand corridors that lead to the ceremonial rooms. Staff members often describe a persistent feeling of unease, as though the very walls retain the memories of events long past. The Lincoln bedroom itself is a focal point for paranormal activity. Used historically by Lincoln and later presidents, it has been the site of numerous ghost sightings. Visitors report seeing shadows flit across the room, faint cries echoing in the night, and sudden drops in temperature that seem impossible in the climate-controlled environment. Some have claimed to hear voices murmuring indistinctly, as if whispering secrets from another time. The cumulative effect of these experiences has created an enduring legend. The White House is alive with the presence of those who shaped the nation, their spirits lingering long after their mortal lives ended. Other historical figures have also been seen. Guests and staff have reported fleeting glimpses of former First Ladies, such as Abigail Adams, wandering the corridors, her ghostly figure draped in period dress. Andrew Jackson is said to appear in the Yellow Oval Room, exuding an intense, commanding presence. Visitors sometimes feel a sudden shift in energy, a chill accompanied by the sense that someone powerful and unseen is observing them. Even Secret Service agents and long-term staff members acknowledge these unusual occurrences, often recounting stories of lights switching on and off, unexplained drafts, or objects moving seemingly on their own. The White House is not only haunted by individuals, but also by the collective weight of history. From political decisions and monumental events to tragedies, scandals, and deaths that occurred within its walls, the mansion seems to have absorbed the emotional energy of generations. Some claim that this energy manifests as unexplained phenomena. Shadows walking the halls, doors rattling despite closed latches, or the sensation of an invisible presence moving through a room. Even in the state dining rooms, guests have reported hearing footsteps behind them, only to turn and find no one present. These experiences suggest that the White House is not merely a building, but a repository of memory, where the past refuses to remain silent. Many presidents themselves have acknowledged unusual occurrences. Harry Truman reportedly encountered Lincoln's ghost in the White House on multiple occasions, describing the sensation as respectful, yet uncanny. Other presidents and their families have reported hearing footsteps when no one else is in the room, feeling cold spots, or sensing the presence of someone unseen. The persistence of these stories across administrations and centuries reinforces the idea that the supernatural is an inseparable part of the White House's history, a silent witness to the nation's triumphs and tragedies. The architecture of the White House seems to enhance these experiences. Its vast hallways, high ceilings, and historical furnishings create spaces where sounds carry unpredictably. Shadows bend in unusual ways, and energy feels concentrated. Visitors often describe a subtle but pervasive feeling of being watched as they move from room to room, the sensation intensifying in the areas most historically significant. Even routine tours occasionally give way to inexplicable chills, strange noises, or sudden feelings of unease that defy logical explanation. Over time, these hauntings have become woven into the lore of the White House. Historians, staff, and paranormal enthusiasts alike have documented accounts of ghostly activity, from Lincoln's quiet presence to unexplained noises echoing through the corridors. Some experiences are brief, a shadow in a hallway or a whisper carried on the wind, while others leave lasting impressions, prompting those who witness them to reconsider the nature of the mansion and the weight of the history it contains. The White House, a symbol of power and governance, stands as a reminder that even the most prominent homes can harbor the echoes of the past. The spirits that roam its halls, Abraham Lincoln, former first ladies, and countless others, serve as silent witnesses to the nation's triumphs, failures, and tragedies. Guests and staff alike report encounters that are as fascinating as they are unsettling. Phantom knocks, footsteps, shadowy figures, and the overwhelming sense that the house itself remembers. For those who step inside, the experience is a brush with history and the supernatural, a reminder that even the most powerful places are not immune to the presence of restless spirits. In the heart of Manhattan, tucked away atop a quiet hill in the Washington Heights neighborhood, stands the Morris Jumel Mansion, a stately home that has borne witness to centuries of history. Built in 1765, it is the oldest house in Manhattan, its Georgian architecture a silent testament to colonial America. But behind its elegant facade lies a history steeped in mystery, intrigue, and ghostly legends. Once the home of Eliza Jumel, the wealthy widow of Aaron Burr, the mansion is said to be haunted by spirits of the past, including Burr himself, colonial-era soldiers, and servants who once worked and suffered within its walls. The mansion has always been intertwined with pivotal moments in American history. During the Revolutionary War, it served as a headquarters for General George Washington, and the creaking floors and high ceilings are thought to still echo the footsteps of soldiers planning battles, discussing strategies, or resting after long days of conflict. Visitors often report an uncanny sense of being watched while exploring the halls, as if the soldiers of the 18th century continued to patrol the rooms where they once walked. Shadows seem to move at the edges of vision, and faint whispers can sometimes be heard, indistinct murmurs that vanish when one tries to focus on their source. Aaron Burr, the controversial Vice President of the United States, is said to haunt the mansion as well. After his marriage to Eliza Jumel, he reportedly spent time at the home, and his presence is described by many as unnervingly tangible. Guests and staff have reported seeing a tall, thin figure moving silently through the upper rooms, sometimes pausing at windows as if surveying the city below. Some claim to hear the echo of his voice, low and deliberate, speaking words that cannot be understood, or the sound of a door creaking open and closing by itself. Those who sense his presence describe a chill in the air, a subtle unease that seems to seep into the bones, leaving an impression long after leaving the mansion. Servants of the past are also said to linger in the mansion. Tales passed down through generations suggest that those who toiled within the grand home, preparing lavish meals and maintaining its intricate architecture, may have suffered harsh conditions. Guests today report sudden cold spots, faint touches on shoulders, and the sense that someone is standing close by even when no one is present. Objects occasionally shift or fall inexplicably, and doors have been known to swing open with no discernible cause. Some visitors describe hearing soft footsteps along the floors above them, only to discover that the rooms are empty, a chilling reminder of lives once lived and shadows that never left. The mansion's staircases and hallways are particularly active. Visitors often recount the sensation of being followed as they move through narrow corridors or ascend the grand staircase to the second floor. Sometimes, a sudden gust of cold air sweeps through, accompanied by the whisper of a voice or the creak of unseen footsteps. Mirrors in these hallways can behave strangely, reflecting fleeting shapes or figures that vanish when observed directly. The combination of architectural design, age, and accumulated history seems to amplify the paranormal phenomena, creating an atmosphere thick with tension and unease. Even the rooms themselves hold stories that refuse to be forgotten. The dining room, where the Jumels entertained New York's elite, has been the site of unexplained sounds, the clinking of china, faint conversations, or the laughter of unseen guests echoing in the high-ceilinged room. In the bedrooms, visitors report sudden drops in temperature, shadowy figures lingering in corners, and the feeling of an unseen presence hovering near their bed. Some claim to have experienced dreams that feel more like memories, vivid and unsettling glimpses into moments that may have occurred centuries ago within the mansion's walls. The gardens and exterior of the Morris Jumel mansion also play a role in its haunted reputation. Visitors have reported seeing figures standing silently among the trees, sometimes in colonial-era attire, vanishing when approached. Strange lights have been spotted flickering in the windows after dark, and shadows seem to move along the grounds without any identifiable source. Even during daylight, a sense of history hangs heavy in the air, an almost tangible energy that reminds visitors of the lives, conflicts, and secrets the house has held for more than 250 years. Paranormal investigators and historians alike have documented numerous occurrences that defy logical explanation. Audio recordings occasionally pick up faint whispers or footsteps that cannot be traced, while photographs sometimes reveal shadowy figures or unexplained orbs. Staff and guides recount stories of visitors feeling sudden chills, hearing noises with no apparent source, or sensing the presence of a figure watching them silently from across the room. Whether these experiences are rooted in the supernatural or the mind's reaction to the mansion's long history, the consistency of reports over decades suggests that the Morris Jumel mansion is a place where the past is never truly gone. The mansion's long history, from colonial times to the Revolutionary War, and later as the residence of one of America's most notorious figures, has created a unique layering of experiences that continues to captivate the imagination. Visitors often leave the mansion with more than a sense of its historical significance. They leave with stories of shadows, whispers, and an almost palpable energy that seems to linger in the air long after departing. The spirits of soldiers, servants, errand boys, and other unknown figures appear to continue their watch over the house, preserving the memory of a life lived in grandeur and at times in hardship. In the quiet town of Wilder, Kentucky, where the Ohio River bends against the horizon, stands a place notorious among paranormal enthusiasts and thrill-seekers alike. Bobby Mackey's Music World, known primarily as a honky-tonk nightclub, the property holds a far darker secret, hidden just beyond the lights and music. Behind the club, a small, unassuming house sits quietly, yet it is here that the most sinister tales originate. Locals whisper that the house on the property is a portal to the unknown, a nexus where demonic forces and violent spirits converge. Those brave or foolish enough to enter rarely leave unchanged. The history of the property is steeped in tragedy and blood. Before Bobby Mackey opened his club, the land was home to dark deeds. Some claim that the house was the site of ritualistic practices and occult activity, intended to summon powers from beyond the mortal plane. Others suggest it was a place of violence, where people met cruel or untimely deaths. The combination of death, ritual, and unfulfilled human desires seems to have imbued the property with a malevolent energy, creating a space where the boundary between the living and the dead is dangerously thin. Visitors often describe the air around the house as suffocating, heavy with a presence that seems to press against the chest. A chill that does not correspond with the weather follows those who approach, as though invisible hands trailed them along the property. Some report hearing whispers, unintelligible but filled with menace, carried on sudden gusts of wind or emanating from rooms with no apparent source. The sounds are subtle, at first a faint murmur, the creak of a floorboard, but intensify for those who linger too long, transforming the atmosphere from unsettling to terrifying in moments. Paranormal activity inside the house has been described as both unpredictable and violent. Guests frequently report seeing shadows dart across hallways, sometimes taking on almost humanoid forms. Doors swing open and shut with a force that suggests intention, while objects occasionally fly through the air as though thrown by an unseen hand. Lights flicker without explanation, and electronic devices often malfunction, recording distorted audio or cutting out entirely. Some investigators have felt a sensation of being physically pushed or grabbed, the presence so tangible it is almost impossible to ignore. The house has also earned a reputation as a gateway to hell, a phrase repeated by those who have experienced its more extreme phenomena. Demonic presences are said to manifest in both subtle and overt ways. Some visitors report hearing growls or guttural voices, low and threatening, that seem to come from the walls themselves. Others claim to see glowing eyes watching from the corners of rooms, or shadowy figures emerging from the darkness, only to vanish when approached. The energy is described as oppressive, suffocating, and ancient, a force that feels older than the building itself. Certain areas of the property appear to be particularly active. The basement of the house, dark and cramped, is infamous for its violent haunting. Witnesses report sudden gusts of freezing air, inexplicable sounds of chains rattling, and the unmistakable feeling of being watched. Some have seen full-bodied apparitions standing silently, sometimes blocking paths or following visitors as they move. On multiple occasions, people have reported hearing screams, agonized human, and terrifyingly emanating from the basement. Though no source can be found outside the house, strange phenomena are also common. Lights are seen flickering in uninhabited rooms, doors slam without cause, and footsteps echo across empty porches. Even the property's parking lot, adjacent to the main club, is said to be haunted by restless spirits. Patrons and staff describe seeing figures dart across the edges of their vision, shadows that vanish when looked at directly, or cold drafts that follow them as they walk through the parking lot after dark. The sensation is unnerving, as if the house exerts influence far beyond its walls, reaching into the surrounding property with a malevolent intent. Paranormal investigators have long been drawn to the house, documenting phenomena that defy rational explanation. Cameras capture fleeting shadows, orbs of light, and shapes that seem to move with purpose. Audio devices record unidentifiable voices, screams, or chanting that was not audible at the time of filming. Some researchers have reported sudden feelings of nausea, dizziness, or overwhelming dread upon entering the house, physical symptoms that dissipate once they leave. The consistency of these experiences across different investigators, time periods, and methods suggests that the hauntings are more than imagination or coincidence. The stories of violent spirits and demonic entities are reinforced by local legend. Some claim that individuals who have attempted to spend the night inside the house have fled in terror. driven away by apparitions or an overwhelming sense of danger. Others speak of the spirits of those who died violently on the property lingering, replaying their final moments in spectral loops, eternally bound to the land where their lives ended. The combination of tragic history, violent energy, and occult associations makes the house a uniquely terrifying sight, a place where curiosity often comes at a personal cost. Even the proximity to Bobby Mackey's music world adds to the house's unsettling reputation. The club itself seems to attract a certain energy, with reports of patrons feeling sudden chills, hearing phantom voices, or seeing shadowy figures while inside. While the activity inside the club is less violent than in the house, many believe that the hauntings are connected, with the house acting as a focal point for the darker energies that occasionally bleed into the club. The connection between the two locations reinforces the idea that the property is not just haunted, but a hotspot for spiritual disturbance. The house on Bobby Mackey's property is more than a haunted site. It is a locus of malevolence, a space where demonic presences and violent spirits are said to dwell. From the basement to the hallways, from the shadows in the corners to the air itself, the house exudes an energy that terrifies all who enter. Patrons, staff, and investigators alike describe experiences that are consistently chilling: cold spots, whispers, apparitions, violent poltergeist activity, and an ever-present sense of being watched. For those drawn by curiosity or disbelief, the house serves as a stark reminder that some doors, once opened, may never truly be closed. In the quiet streets of Indianapolis, Indiana, there stands a historic home with a dark and tragic past. The Hannah House. Though once a symbol of hope and courage as part of the Underground Railroad, it is now known for the lingering presence of spirits who suffered untimely deaths within its walls. This house, which offered sanctuary to enslaved people seeking freedom, became the scene of a horrific fire that claimed the lives of those it was meant to protect. Today, the Hannah House is not merely a piece of history, it is a location steeped in sorrow. A place where the echoes of suffering continue to resonate, terrifying anyone who dares to enter. During its operation as a safe house for the Underground Railroad, the Hannah House provided shelter for enslaved people fleeing the bondage of the South. The home's basement, hidden from view and carefully concealed, was a haven where individuals could rest and hide while planning the next stage of their journey to freedom. But in a cruel twist of fate, the basement became a tomb. A fire broke out under mysterious circumstances, engulfing the confined space in smoke and flames. Those inside had little chance to escape, and many perished, their cries of terror trapped behind locked doors and charred walls. The tragedy left an indelible mark on the home, imprinting a dark energy that has endured for generations. Visitors and investigators describe the atmosphere within the Hannah House as heavy and oppressive, charged with a sorrow that is nearly tangible. Many recount sudden drops in temperature, especially near the basement where the tragedy occurred. Cold spots seem to follow people as they move through the home, chilling them to the bone, even in warm weather. Some have reported the unmistakable smell of burning flesh, a stench that appears and dissipates without explanation, lingering as a horrifying reminder of the lives lost in the fire. These sensory experiences make it clear to all who enter that the house carries the memory of its past within every wall, floorboard, and shadowed corner. One of the most frequent reports involves ghostly cries and wails that echo throughout the home. Visitors often hear the sounds of anguish coming from the basement, soft at first, then rising in intensity, as if the spirits are reliving the moments of their final, desperate struggle. Some describe hearing the shuffle of footsteps on the stairs above them, only to find the space empty when they investigate. The cries are chilling, often accompanied by the feeling of an unseen presence pressing close, as though the spirits are aware of the living intruding on their sorrowful domain. These auditory experiences have terrified even the bravest of paranormal investigators, leaving them shaken long after leaving the house. Shadows are also a constant presence at the Hannah House. Many guests report seeing shapes flit across the corners of their vision, disappearing when they turn to look directly. Some claim to see figures standing silently in the rooms, their forms indistinct but unmistakably human. often near the basement door or in hallways that lead to hidden rooms. These apparitions are rarely malevolent, yet their presence is overwhelming. A reminder of the countless souls trapped in the house by circumstances beyond their control. Witnesses frequently describe a feeling of being followed, of unseen eyes tracking their every movement, particularly when they move toward areas connected to the fire. The basement itself is considered the epicenter of paranormal activity. Those who enter often experience an almost unbearable sense of dread. Some report hearing chains dragging along the floor or the faint, desperate scratching of fingernails against wood. Others have felt sudden touches on their shoulders or arms, a physical sensation that leaves no mark but terrifies the living. The basement's air is often described as thick and heavy, carrying an inexplicable weight, as if the sorrow of the past has concentrated there, refusing to dissipate. Many who venture into the space find it difficult to remain calm, overwhelmed by the intensity of the energy that pervades the room. Even the upper floors are not free from haunting. Guests have reported objects moving without explanation, doors opening and closing on their own, and lights flickering in ways that defy logic. Some have seen shadowy figures descending the staircases, or glimpsed ghostly silhouettes standing in windows, as though watching the outside world from a place they can no longer inhabit fully. The combination of sounds, smells, and visions creates an immersive and terrifying experience, one that blurs the line between the living and the dead. Paranormal investigators have long been drawn to the Hannah House, documenting phenomena that are difficult to explain. Audio equipment sometimes captures cries, whispers, and indistinct voices that were not audible to the human ear during recording. Cameras have captured shadows and orbs that defy conventional photography. Investigators often report feelings of nausea, dizziness, or intense emotional sadness, sensations that vanish when they leave the property, but leave lasting impressions of the house as dark energy. These repeated accounts suggest that the hauntings are deeply tied to the events of the fire, and the spirits who remain trapped in its aftermath. The tragic history of the Hannah House continues to fascinate and terrify. Its past, as part of the Underground Railroad, makes the story all the more poignant. A site of hope turned to horror by a cruel twist of fate. Visitors leave with more than just a memory of a historic home. They carry an imprint of the sorrow, the fear, and the lingering energy of those who died seeking freedom. The house stands as a testament to lives cut short, and as a warning that some tragedies leave marks that time cannot erase. Walking through the Hannah House is an experience that engages all the senses. The smell of smoke that seems to appear without cause, the sudden cold that chills to the bone, the cries of the lost, and the fleeting shadows create an atmosphere that is both haunting and humbling. It is a house where history is alive, where the past refuses to stay buried, and where the spirits of the enslaved continue to make their presence known. For those who step inside, the experience is unforgettable. Chilling reminder that some homes are forever haunted by the tragedies that occurred within them. Perched along the windswept coastline of Seabrook, New Hampshire, the Seabrook House stands as a weathered sentinel against the relentless sea. Its wooden beams creak under the weight of countless storms, and its windows frame the endless horizon where the Atlantic crashes against jagged rocks. Yet the true story of the Seabrook House is not found in the roar of the ocean or the cries of the gulls, but in the shadows that haunt its halls. For decades, locals have whispered that the home is haunted by the spirits of drowned sailors, men claimed by the unforgiving sea, who now wander the house in search of rest they may never find. The origins of the hauntings are murky, shrouded in local legend and maritime tragedy. Fishermen's journals from the 1800s speak of violent storms along the Seabrook coast, ships capsizing, and men lost to the waves. It is said that the house became a refuge for some of these sailors, or at least for their bodies after the storms. Yet instead of peace, the spirits lingered. Witnesses have described hearing phantom knocks at doors, as though the men are attempting to gain entry, seeking shelter or perhaps warning the living of dangers they once faced. These knocks are irregular, echoing with the hollow resonance of wood that has absorbed decades of despair. Inside the house, the air is often thick with a cold, salty draft that seems out of place, carrying the scent of the ocean deep within rooms that should be dry and warm. Some visitors describe the sudden sensation of dampness on their skin, as if the sea itself has followed them indoors. The most chilling reports involve the apparitions of men, their clothes dripping wet, hair plastered to their heads, standing silently in corridors or leaning against doorframes. Their eyes, haunting and hollow, follow visitors without expression. Some have claimed that when these figures appear, the temperature drops sharply, and a sense of isolation, as though one is alone in the vast ocean, grips the observer's chest. Phantom footsteps are a constant presence. On creaking floorboards or the narrow staircase, footsteps echo in rhythms that do not match anyone walking. Sometimes they approach, pause, and retreat, as if the spirits are circling the living, observing and testing their courage. Those who linger in certain rooms report a sensation of being followed, a cold hand brushing against their shoulder, or the impression of someone standing close behind them. Doors swing open on their own, often revealing empty rooms, while objects occasionally shift from their places, as if nudged by unseen hands. The house seems alive, reacting to the presence of intruders with subtle yet unnerving gestures. The maritime spirits of the Seabrook house also make themselves known audibly. Faint murmurs and conversations drift through hallways, whispers indistinct but undeniably human. Occasionally, voices rise in panicked cries, echoing like the wails of men struggling against a storm at sea. Windows rattle as if buffeted by winds that exist only indoors, and the creaking of shutters can mimic the groans of ships in distress. Some visitors have claimed to hear chains dragging across the floor or the splashing of water in rooms far from any plumbing. These sounds are so vivid that they leave witnesses questioning their own senses, unsure whether the house is haunted by spirits or by their imagination, but repeated reports suggest that the hauntings are very real. Sightings often occur near windows overlooking the ocean. Apparitions sometimes appear silhouetted against the stormy horizon, faces pale and hair dripping wet, staring outward as though attempting to return to the waters from which they came. Some have reported seeing multiple figures, moving in patterns that resemble the labor of sailors working together, only to vanish when observed directly. Shadows flit across rooms in the corner of vision, vanishing when looked at head, leaving behind a sense of weight and presence that cannot be shaken. The house itself amplifies these paranormal experiences. Its wooden beams groan and shift with the wind, and long hallways create echoes that carry sound unnaturally far, making a single creak resonate like many narrow staircases, and tight corners create spaces where shadows can linger, hiding forms that are only partially visible. Visitors often describe feeling disoriented, as though the house's layout subtly shifts, leading them toward areas of activity or isolating them in moments of fear. The combination of architecture, maritime history, and residual energy from tragedy makes the Seabrook house a uniquely terrifying location. Even daytime visitors have reported unsettling experiences. Some feel sudden chills or the smell of the ocean indoors, while others hear faint knocks or whispers. When no one else is present, staff or homeowners have noted that the activity intensifies during storms or when the sea is particularly rough, suggesting a connection between the spirits and the ocean that claim their lives. The house seems to serve as both a shelter and a prison for these lost souls, tethering them to land while the sea calls to them still. For decades, paranormal investigators have documented the phenomena at the Seabrook house. Cameras capture shadowy figures and unexplained orbs. Audio recorders pick up faint voices and footsteps. And thermal imaging sometimes reveals cold spots where no logical cause exists. Witnesses consistently describe an overwhelming sense of sadness or longing, a palpable grief that pervades the property. Whether one believes in ghosts or not, the repeated accounts of sensory anomalies, apparitions, and maritime echoes suggest that the house is far from ordinary. Walking through the Seabrook house is to step into a liminal space between land and sea, between life and death. The smell of salt water in the air, the phantom knocks at doors, the chilling apparitions of drowned men, and the cold drafts that seem to follow visitors combine to create an experience that is both terrifying and mournful. The house does not simply retain memories, it seems to manifest them, allowing the living to glimpse the tragedy of those who never survived the unforgiving Atlantic. The Seabrook House stands as a haunting reminder of lives claimed too soon by the ocean and the lingering power of unresolved tragedy. For those who enter its halls, the experience is unforgettable, an eerie connection to lost sailors, a brush with spirits tethered to the sea, and a home where the past never truly rests. The cries, the knocks, the shadows, and the sea-scented drafts all serve as evidence that the house is more than a building. It is a liminal place, a coastal threshold where the living and the dead coexist, and where the ocean's dead never truly let go. Nestled in the stark, sun-baked desert of Joshua Tree, California, the Joshua Tree Inn appears at first glance to be an unassuming place, a small, rustic hotel that welcomes weary travelers seeking the quiet solitude of the high desert. Yet within its walls lies a room steeped in tragedy and legend. Graham Parsons' room, the space where the pioneering musician met his untimely death in 1973. While the inn continues to host tourists, musicians, and seekers of desert.com, those who enter Parsons' room speak of experiences that defy explanation. It is a room heavy with history, grief, and a presence that lingers long after the lights are turned out. Visitors frequently report a palpable atmosphere of despair in Parsons' room, a crushing emotional weight that seems to press down upon anyone who steps through the door. Unlike ordinary homes or inns, where warmth and comfort dominate, this space carries the energy of untimely death and lingering sorrow. Guests have described the sudden onset of melancholy, a deep sadness that seeps into their bones, leaving them uneasy, disoriented, and sometimes tearful. It is as if the room itself remembers the final moments of Parsons' life, replaying the grief, regret, and unfinished music that accompanied his passing. Perhaps most famously, the room is said to carry ghostly music. Visitors and staff have reported hearing the faint strum of a guitar, distant chords, or haunting melodies drifting through the air, even when no instrument is present. Some claim to hear Parsons' voice, faint and distorted, singing or murmuring lyrics in the stillness of the night, enveloping them in an eerie symphony that seems both mournful and otherworldly. For many, the experience is overwhelming, a reminder that Parsons' creative spirit refuses to be silenced, even by death. Other paranormal phenomena accompany the music and emotional weight. Shadows flit along the edges of the room, fleeting shapes that vanish when directly observed. Guests have reported sudden drops in temperature, localized cold spots that feel almost tangible, as if an unseen presence has entered the room. Some have felt the sensation of being watched, or even touched gentle brushes against arms or shoulders that leave no mark but send a jolt of fear through the spine. Lights occasionally flicker, and electronic devices sometimes malfunction, recording strange noises or shutting down unexpectedly. The spectral presence is not always passive. Several visitors report an almost sentient energy, as though the spirit inhabiting the room is aware of intruders and subtly communicates its presence. The sensations range from oppressive sadness to sudden jolts of fear, moments where the room seems to react to the observer's emotions. One frequent account involves the sense of an invisible figure pacing the floorboards, circling the bed, or leaning over furniture, as though replaying the final acts of life and death that unfolded decades ago. Paranormal investigators have long been drawn to Graham Parsons' room. Audio recordings sometimes capture unexplainable music, low murmurs, or distorted voices not audible to the human ear at the time. While thermal imaging highlights areas of inexplicable cold, investigators report a profound sense of heaviness upon entering the room, a visceral emotional reaction that persists even after leaving. The combination of auditory, visual, and emotional phenomena has led many to conclude that the room is a hotspot of residual energy, saturated with grief, creativity, and unresolved spiritual presence. The inn's isolation in the high desert seems to amplify the supernatural activity. The vast, open landscape outside contrasts sharply with the intimate confines of Parsons' room, creating a sense of vulnerability for those inside. At night, the desert wind whispers against the windows, sometimes carrying faint echoes of music or voices that blend with the natural sounds of the wilderness. Visitors often report that the energy intensifies after dark, when the stillness of the desert makes every creak of floorboards or distant sound feel magnified, as though the room itself has become a portal between the living and the dead. Many accounts suggest that Parsons' spirit is not malevolent, but neither is it entirely benign. Guests describe the presence as deeply emotional, a mixture of sorrow, longing, and a lingering attachment to the world he left behind. Some feel a sense of companionship, as though the musician is sharing his grief and his music with anyone sensitive enough to notice. Others experience discomfort, a psychological weight that drives them from the room, unable to reconcile the energy with ordinary life. The emotional intensity of the room leaves no visitor untouched, whether they arrive as skeptics, fans, or casual travelers. The room's haunting is further accentuated by its connection to Parsons' life and music. As a pioneer of country rock and an influential figure in the music scene, Parsons' creativity and struggles are intertwined with the energy of the space. Those attuned to music, particularly Parsons' compositions, often report the most vivid experiences, hearing chords that perfectly mimic his style, sensing rhythm in the silence. It is as though the room preserves not just his spirit, but the essence of his artistic soul. Visitors leave Gram Parsons' room with a mix of awe, unease, and sorrow. Some describe a lingering melancholy that follows them for hours, while others carry with them the faint memory of music drifting on the wind. For decades, stories have circulated among locals, musicians, and paranormal enthusiasts, painting a consistent picture of a room that is emotionally charged, musically haunted, and undeniably tethered to the presence of a man who died too young. The Joshua Tree Inn, with its sun-bleached walls and desert stillness, is more than a hotel. It is a repository of history, grief, and the lingering spirit of Gram Parsons. His room remains a focal point for those who seek to understand the intersection of creativity and mortality, a space where the echoes of music and sorrow continue to resonate. For those who enter, the experience is unforgettable, a haunting blend of emotion, sound, and spectral presence that defies explanation, a reminder that some souls refuse to leave, and some music never dies. In the heart of San Francisco, amidst the bustling streets and Victorian architecture, stands the Queen Anne Hotel, a grand mansion that exudes charm and elegance. Its ornate turrets, intricate woodwork, and stained glass windows speak of a bygone era. Yet beneath the beauty lies a history steeped in mystery and the supernatural. Before becoming a hotel, the building served as a finishing school for young women, a place where discipline, etiquette, and refinement were instilled. Today, the Queen Anne Hotel is famed not just for its architecture, but for the presence of its most notorious resident, the ghost of the former headmistress, whose influence seems to linger in every hallway, room, and staircase. The headmistress, a stern and formidable woman in life, is said to maintain her authority, even in death. Guests often report sensations of being watched as they move through the hotel, a presence that is firm but not overtly malevolent. In some rooms, visitors have claimed that unseen hands gently tuck them into bed, smoothing covers and adjusting pillows as though maintaining the same standards of propriety she enforced when alive. While the gesture may seem benign, it is unnerving, a reminder that the house retains the rituals and control of its former occupant, and that no corner of the hotel is entirely free from her influence. Footsteps are a common phenomenon at the Queen Anne Hotel. Even when the halls are empty, guests report hearing the soft, deliberate pace of someone moving along the corridors, stopping and starting in patterns that suggest purpose. The sounds echo through the Victorian architecture, bouncing off the wood-paneled walls and ornate staircases, creating an atmosphere thick with anticipation. Some describe hearing the faint click of heels on polished floors, or the shuffle of skirts against carpeting, a reminder of the young students who once filled these spaces. The footsteps can appear to follow visitors, a subtle presence just behind them, vanishing when they turn to look, only to resume moments later. Rooms in the hotel have their own histories and hauntings. The headmistress's former office, now a guest room, is particularly active. Visitors report cold drafts that seem to emanate from nowhere, the scent of old books mixed with a faint, floral perfume that lingers in the corners. Some guests have felt a hand brush against their shoulder while reading or writing, an invisible touch that leaves them startled but unharmed. Mirrors occasionally behave strangely, reflecting figures in the corner of the room that disappear when looked at directly. Many describe an overwhelming sense of order, a subtle energy that compels them to straighten objects, fold clothing, or arrange furniture, just as they might imagine a strict headmistress would have done. The dining areas and hallways also carry echoes of the past. Phantom voices are frequently reported, sometimes speaking in hushed tones or repeating instructions in a measured, deliberate cadence. Some guests swear they hear whispers discussing etiquette or discipline, fragments of conversation that feel suspended in time. Chandeliers sway lightly, and doors open or close without explanation, as though guided by an unseen hand enforcing the routines of a long-gone era. The blend of visual, auditory, and tactile phenomena creates a fully immersive haunting, one that envelops every guest who crosses the threshold. Staff at the Queen Anne Hotel are no strangers to the supernatural. Housekeepers and front desk employees frequently recount incidents that defy logic. Objects occasionally shift position, beds appear perfectly made when they were left untidy, and lights flicker in patterns that seem almost communicative. Some staff members describe hearing footsteps when no one is present, feeling the sensation of a presence passing behind them, or catching glimpses of a figure dressed in period clothing walking the halls. Even those skeptical of ghosts admit to an uneasy feeling, a sense that the headmistress continues to patrol her former domain with vigilance and authority. The hotel's architecture enhances the haunting. Its narrow hallways, spiral staircases, and hidden alcoves create spaces where shadows can linger and sounds carry unnaturally far. Guests often feel as if the building itself is alive, guiding or observing them. The energy of past occupants embedded in the very walls. On quiet nights, the interplay of wind against the turrets and the creaking of old wood amplifies the sensation of movement and presence, making the ordinary extraordinary and the familiar unsettling. Visitors often recount the same mix of emotions: curiosity, fear, and awe. Some are intrigued by the history, fascinated by the thought of interacting with a spirit so deeply tied to the hotel's past. Others are unsettled, unnerved by the invisible hands, whispering voices, and unexplained footsteps. The experiences are rarely violent, but are profound in their intensity, leaving guests with a sense that they have entered a space where time and life continue to intersect in unusual and deeply personal ways. The Queen Anne Hotel also serves as a living museum of its own history. Period furniture, antique fixtures, and preserved provide a tangible connection to the past. Yet the ghostly phenomena ensure that the past is not merely observed, it is experienced. Guests often remark that the energy in the hotel is unlike anything they have encountered elsewhere, a haunting that is both subtle and insistent, an ongoing presence that reminds them that the line between the living and the dead is permeable within these walls. Ultimately, the Queen Anne Hotel is more than a destination for travelers. It is a threshold between eras, a space where Victorian discipline meets the modern world, and where the spirit of the headmistress continues her watch. Every footstep in the hallway, every flicker of light, every gentle adjustment of a bedspread is a reminder that some presences endure beyond death. The mansion embodies a unique blend of history, elegance, and supernatural vigilance, leaving guests with an unforgettable impression of life, death, and the echoes that persist long after the last student has departed. Visitors to the Queen Anne Hotel come for comfort and history, but they leave with stories of the unseen, the felt, and the heard. The headmistress's presence continues to patrol the halls, her spirit a guardian, a reminder, and a lingering whisper of a time when rules and expectations defined every corner of the mansion. It is a haunting that is gentle yet firm, a presence that is impossible to ignore, and a legacy of authority and watchfulness that endures in every room, corridor, and turret of this remarkable San Francisco landmark. In West Palm Beach, Florida, nestled behind a veneer of ordinary streets and suburban quiet, stands a house infamous for its dark and malevolent history, the Riddle House. At first glance, it is a simple structure with weathered walls and overgrown vegetation. But the building's history reveals a far more sinister story. Originally used as a funeral parlor, the Riddle House is a place where death has lingered far too long, and the energy of those who suffered violently within its walls refuses to dissipate. Locals speak in hushed tones about the house, warning that malevolent forces are at work, and that some who enter may never leave the same. The house gained its sinister reputation in part due to the tragic events that occurred there. While functioning as a funeral parlor, it witnessed countless moments of grief and despair. Yet the most notorious incident involved a violent suicide inside the property. The malevolent presence tied to that event is said to have persisted for decades, manifesting in ways both subtle and terrifying. Those who have experienced it describe sensations of being watched, sudden cold drafts, and an oppressive atmosphere that grows heavier the longer one remains inside. Visitors often report feeling a palpable sense of danger, particularly men. Accounts describe sudden attacks by unseen forces, objects thrown across rooms, invisible hands pressing against chests, or a sensation of being physically shelved. The aggression seems focused, deliberate, and connected to the violent act that once occurred within the house. Women, while sometimes affected by the oppressive energy, rarely report the same level of physical aggression, suggesting a disturbing specificity in the haunting. The feeling of menace is intense and immediate, making the house an environment that is difficult to endure for extended periods. The interior of the Riddle House amplifies its ominous aura. Dimly lit hallways, creaking floorboards, and narrow corridors create a claustrophobic environment where shadows seem to move independently of the light. Guests frequently hear footsteps echoing through the empty rooms, often approaching and receding without anyone in sight. Doors slam shut on their own, while drawers and cabinets shift as if disturbed by invisible hands. Some have reported hearing whispers that are low and guttural, incomprehensible yet undeniably human, carrying an emotional weight that makes even skeptics uneasy. One of the most frequently reported phenomena is the sensation of being touched or grabbed. Male visitors often recount sudden, unexplained pressure on their shoulders or backs. Some claim to have felt as if someone were trying to drag them toward the basement or deeper into the house, where the energy is said to be most concentrated. These experiences are terrifying not only for their physicality, but for the sense that the presence is aware of who is in the room. Choosing its targets deliberately and with intent, the basement is considered the epicenter of the haunting. A space that was once used for storage and preparation during the funeral parlor's operation. It now radiates intense negative energy. Visitors report feeling an overwhelming sense of dread, nausea, and panic when descending the steps. Some hear the muffled sound of chains, scraping furniture, or guttural breathing, as if a presence waits in the darkness for intruders to stumble too close. Lights flicker unpredictably, shadows appear and vanish with alarming speed, and temperatures drop sharply, creating an atmosphere that is both terrifying and physically oppressive. Even the exterior of the Riddle House reflects its haunted reputation. Windows appear dark and foreboding, often reflecting distorted images or shadows that do not match the surroundings. Visitors claim that the air around the house feels unusually heavy, and that simply approaching the front door induces an intuitive sense of danger. Some have reported hearing low moans carried on the wind, or seeing dark shapes moving behind the glass, glimpsed only in fleeting moments before vanishing entirely. The house seems to repel the living in subtle ways, warning those who approach that its energy is neither friendly nor forgiving. Paranormal investigators have documented a range of phenomena at the Riddle House that defy explanation. Audio recordings frequently capture groans, whispers, and the sound of footsteps when no one is present. Cameras occasionally pick up shadowy figures, orbs of light, and distortions that suggest the presence of entities beyond the natural realm. Investigators often report feelings of panic, nausea, or a sudden urge to leave the property, physical manifestations of the oppressive energy within. The consistency of these experiences across decades has cemented the house's reputation as one of Florida's most haunted locations. The Riddle House's reputation has also been bolstered by anecdotal stories passed down through the community. Locals warn travelers to stay away, recounting tales of men who felt attacked by invisible forces, or guests who fled in terror after only a few minutes inside. Even those who enter out of curiosity rarely stay long. The energy of the house is immediate, intense, and impossible to ignore. Visitors leave with an unsettling awareness that they have experienced something real. Despite, or perhaps because of its dark energy, the Riddle House continues to attract those fascinated by the paranormal. Investigators, thrill seekers, and curious locals alike are drawn to its haunted reputation, eager to witness or document its supernatural activity. Yet the house remains unchanged in its malevolence, a repository of grief, violence, and unresolved energy that refuses to dissipate. It is a place where the past is never truly buried, where death and tragedy linger in every corner, and where the living are made starkly aware of the boundary between life and the unseen. The Riddle House is more than a haunted location. It is a stark reminder of the lingering power of violent events, of grief and energy trapped within walls that have witnessed suffering, from phantom footsteps and ghostly whispers to physical attacks and oppressive dread. The house is a chilling testament to the idea that some spaces are forever marked by tragedy. For those who enter, it is an unforgettable encounter with a dark presence, a haunting that refuses to be ignored, and a warning that not all doors should be open. In the quiet heart of central Minnesota, nestled along the tree-lined streets of Sauk Center, stands a building that time has not forgotten. The Palmer House, constructed in 1901, rises with the quiet dignity of a bygone era's brick facade, weathered but proud. Its windows like watchful eyes, gazing out over a town that once pulsed with the energy of early 20th century ambition. What began as a grand hotel for traveling salesmen and railroad workers has, over the decades, transformed into something far more mysterious. Today, the Palmer House is not just a historic landmark, it's a place whispered about in hushed tones. A building where the veil between the living and the dead feels paper-thin. From the moment guests step through its heavy wooden doors, many report a shift in the air, something subtle, almost imperceptible, like a breath held too long. The lobby, preserved with period furnishings and dim gas-style lighting, carries the scent of aged wood and faint lavender. But beneath it lies something else, a chill that doesn't match the thermostat, a stillness that seems to listen. Visitors have described hearing low growls echoing from empty hallways, growls that sound less like an animal and more like something angry, trapped. These sounds don't come from behind closed doors or from the basement. They seem to rise from the walls themselves, vibrating through the floorboards as if the building is alive. The second floor, once reserved for long-term residents and transient guests, is where most of the activity concentrates. Room 207, in particular, has gained a grim reputation. Over the years, multiple guests have woken in the middle of the night to the sensation of being watched. Some describe seeing a tall, dark figure standing in the corner, featureless, motionless, yet radiating an overwhelming sense of dread. Others report shadow people darting just beyond their peripheral vision, vanishing when they turn their heads. One guest claimed she saw a woman in an old-fashioned dress standing at the foot of her bed, eyes hollow, mouth moving silently before dissolving into the air. But the Palmer House doesn't just play tricks on the eyes. Its ghosts are said to be physical, aggressive. There are consistent reports of guests being shoved hard, sudden pushes from behind when no one is there. One man said he was knocked off his feet while walking down the third-floor hallway, the impact leaving a bruise across his shoulder. Another guest, a skeptic visiting for a historical tour, swore he felt fingers dig into his arm as he passed an empty doorway. When he turned, there was nothing. Yet the pressure remained, like a phantom grip refusing to let go. Staff at the Palmer house have their own stories. Housekeepers refuse to clean certain rooms alone, especially after dark. One employee reported that a lamp in room 203 turned on by itself 3 times in one night. Each time she unplugged it, only to hear the click of the switch moments later. Another said she found furniture rearranged in the morning chairs, pulled into circles. Beds stripped, drawers opened, as if someone had been searching for something in the dead of night. The building's history offers clues, though no definitive answers. Originally built by a wealthy businessman named Charles Palmer, the house served as both a residence and a high-end hotel during Sauk Center's boom years. Palmer lived there with his wife and daughter. But tragedy struck when his wife died under mysterious circumstances. Some say illness, others whisper poisoning. After her death, Palmer became reclusive, and his daughter eventually left town, never to return. The house changed hands many times over the decades, hosting countless guests, some of whom may never have checked out. There were rumors of a suicide in the 1920s, a traveling salesman found hanging in room 207. A fire in the 1940s claimed the life of a maid who was said to have been locked in the basement by mistake. Records are spotty, and the truth is buried under layers of time and speculation. But those who spent a night at the Palmer house often leave convinced. Something lingers here. Not just memories, but presence. Paranormal investigators have visited, drawn by the growing lore. Equipped with EMF detectors, infrared cameras, and audio recorders, they've captured unexplained voices on tape, growls, whispers, a child's laughter in an empty room. One team recorded a voice saying, "Get out," clear as day, though no one was within 30 feet of the microphone. Thermal cameras have shown cold spots moving against air currents. And on several occasions, equipment has shut down without explanation. Still, the Palmer house remains open. It operates today as a bed and breakfast, blending history with hospitality. Guests come not only for the antique charm, but for the thrill of the unknown. Some book room 207 on purpose, daring the darkness. Most leave changed, some shaken, others strangely moved, as if they've brushed against something ancient and unresolved. Tucked deep in the rural quiet of Hinsdale, New York, where the forests grow thick and the nights stretch long, stands a house that defies reason and resists peace. The Hinsdale House, a decaying Victorian structure half swallowed by ivy and shadow, has earned a grim reputation as one of the most haunted and spiritually volatile locations in the Northeast. More than just a haunted house, it is a place where the veil between worlds has not just thinned, it has torn. Over the decades, the home has drawn the desperate, the curious, and the devout, all seeking answers, but none have found peace. Exorcisms have been performed within its walls, by priests, by spiritualists, by teams of paranormal experts. Yet every attempt has ended the same way: in failure, in fear, and in retreat. The house was built in 1887 by a reclusive industrialist named Elias Grayson, a man rumored to dabble in occult practices. From the beginning, locals whispered about strange lights in the windows at odd hours, about figures seen moving through the rooms when no one lived there. Grayson died under mysterious circumstances, found in the attic with his eyes wide open, mouth frozen in a silent scream, surrounded by symbols drawn in what was later confirmed to be human blood. After his death, the house passed through a series of owners, each lasting only months before fleeing, claiming they were no longer alone. In the 1970s, a young couple purchased a property, hoping to restore it. They lasted 9 days, speaking in a guttural language she didn't recognize. His eyes were black, his voice not his own. She fled to a neighbor's home, returning the next morning with police only to find the house empty, her husband gone, and babbling about the ones beneath the floor. He never spoke coherently again. Since then, the Hinsdale house has become a magnet for the unexplained. Visitors who approach the property report immediate physical effects: nausea, dizziness, an overwhelming sense of dread. Some claim they feel watched from the moment they step onto the overgrown path leading to the front door. Those who enter often don't stay long. Many describe the air as thick, almost viscous, as if breathing underwater. The walls seem to pulse faintly, and the temperature drops without warning, even in summer. But it's the sounds that unnerve most. At night, low chanting rises from the surrounding woods, voices in unison, speaking in no known language, growing louder as midnight approaches. Some recordings have captured these chants, and audio analysts have noted layered vocal patterns that suggest dozens of voices, though no one is ever seen. The source appears to move, circling the house, sometimes seeming to come from beneath the earth itself. More disturbing are the physical manifestations. Another woman claimed she was dragged across the floor by an invisible force while praying in the parlor. Possession attempts are common. Multiple people have reported sudden blackouts, only to regain consciousness, speaking in strange tongues, or writing violent, blasphemous messages on the walls. One man, a volunteer for a ghost hunting team, began convulsing violently after touching the basement door. His body arched off the floor, his voice deepening into something inhuman as he screamed, "He is awake." The team fled, leaving their equipment behind. When they reviewed the footage, they found 17 minutes missing time they could not account for. The exorcisms only made things worse. In 1998, a Catholic priest from Buffalo performed a formal rite of exorcism. After a family reported their daughter speaking in Latin and levitating off her bed. Midway through the ritual, the lights exploded. The crucifix in the priest's hand cracked in two, and the girl began laughing, a sound described as hundreds of voices at once. The priest abandoned the rite, later stating, "This is not one demon, it's a legion. And they're not just in the house, they're in the land." Further attempts followed. In 2011, a group of independent exorcists spent 3 days in the house, using ancient texts and protective sigils. On the final night, all communication ceased. They were found the next morning unconscious in the basement, their gear destroyed, their skin covered in faint, glowing symbols that faded by sunrise. None of them remember what happened, but one later committed suicide. Today, the Hinsdale house stands abandoned, condemned by the county, its windows boarded, its roof sagging under years of neglect. Trespassing is technically illegal, but it doesn't stop the curious. YouTube explorers, thrill seekers, and occultists still sneak in, drawn by the darkness. Most leave quickly. Some don't leave at all. Local residents avoid the area, especially after dusk. They speak of figures seen in the tree stall, emaciated shapes with no faces of animals found dead in circles, their bodies arranged in ritual patterns. The chanting from the woods continues, growing louder in the weeks before winter, and those who live nearby swear they sometimes see lights in the house, again flickering, unnatural, moving from room to room as if someone or something is finally at home. The Conjuring House, located in Harrisville, Rhode Island, is infamous as one of the most terrifying haunted houses in America. Known widely as the real-life inspiration for the blockbuster film The Conjuring, this home gained notoriety because of the experiences of the Perron family, who lived there in the 1970s. What began as a typical family move quickly turned into a nightmare, as the Perrons became the targets of violent and unrelenting spirits that seemed determined to make their lives unbearable. The house itself is a classic New England farmhouse, built in the late 18th century. Its rustic charm and spacious rooms might appeal to someone seeking history and quiet rural life. However, beneath its picturesque exterior lay a dark and malevolent presence. Almost immediately after moving in, the Perron family began noticing strange occurrences. At first, these were subtle. The feeling of being watched, sudden cold spots in rooms, and objects appearing slightly out of place. But over time, the activity escalated into something far more sinister. Caroline Perron, the mother of the family, was often the focal point of these disturbances. She reported seeing full-bodied apparitions in the house, shadows that moved against a grain of light, and hearing voices that whispered in the middle of the night. These were not harmless spirits. The activity was violent and aggressive. Doors slammed without warning, Furniture moved across rooms, and objects would fly through the air with no discernible cause. The family's pets, too, seemed unnerved, often retreating from areas of the house where the energy was strongest. One of the most terrifying aspects of the haunting was the sense that the house itself was alive, reacting to the Perron's presence. Family members experienced being physically shoved or scratched by unseen forces. In some cases, they reported being pinned to the bed or pressed into walls by invisible hands. There were nights when the entire family felt trapped within the house, unable to leave because of the overwhelming sense of dread that permeated the air. These encounters left psychological scars that lasted long after the family had moved away. The Perron's experiences eventually drew the attention of paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren, who were already well known for their work with haunted locations and demonic activity. The Warrens documented the haunting extensively, capturing both photographs and audio recordings of unexplained phenomena. They described the spirits as malicious and cunning, capable of interacting with the family in deeply personal ways. According to the Warrens, some entities appeared to have attachments to particular objects or rooms, suggesting a dark history intertwined with the property itself. Despite the fear that gripped the Perrons, the family chose to stay for several years, determined not to let the spirits force them out. During this time, they developed strategies to cope with the activity. Some of these were practical, such as avoiding certain rooms at night, while others involved spiritual or religious practices, like prayer and blessings. Even so, the house never ceased its harassment. The malevolent presence seemed almost sentient, reacting to the Perron's attempts to assert control over the environment. Today, the house continues to fascinate both paranormal enthusiasts and curious visitors, while it remains a private residence and is not open to the public. Its story has been immortalized in films, documentaries, and countless books. Investigators who have been allowed to enter report that the energy is still palpable. Doors slam seemingly on their own. Objects shift mysteriously, and shadows appear in peripheral vision. Even seasoned paranormal professionals admit that the level of activity experienced here is unusually intense, earning the property a fearsome reputation. What makes the Conjuring House so compelling is not just the violence of its hauntings, but the way it affected an ordinary family in an ordinary home. Unlike castles or abandoned asylums, this was a place meant for comfort and safety, a home. Yet it became a site of terror, demonstrating that the most frightening hauntings often occur where we least expect them. For those who study paranormal phenomena, the house serves as a case study in malevolent activity, illustrating the psychological and physical impacts that such disturbances can have on people living under their influence. The story of the Conjuring House endures because it is both horrifying and deeply human. It reminds us that history can leave traces, that energy can linger, and that some spirits may not rest peacefully, no matter how long the years pass. The Perron family's ordeal continues to capture the imagination, serving as a chilling testament to the unknown forces that can inhabit even the most ordinary of homes. Even today, the house stands as a dark beacon in Rhode Island, a place where the past refuses to stay buried and where visitors, investigators, and viewers of the story alike are reminded that some terrors are all too real. And so, we leave these haunted homes behind, though their restless residents remain, waiting for their next visitors. Perhaps one day, curiosity will lead you to one of these doorsteps. If you go inside, remember, the walls may be listening, the air may be watching, and some houses never let you leave. Thank you, brave listeners, for joining me on this journey into America's most haunted homes. If you enjoyed this trip into darkness, don't forget to like, subscribe, and return for more tales that blur the line between the living and the dead. Until next time, keep your lights on and your doors locked. Sweet dreams. If you dare.